And then we went to Lamanna, the smaller town. Have you ever been there, Henry?
Nope.
It's safer than many places in the US. Along the border where the drug cartels are and stuff, it's not so safe, but I feel safer there than I can. And that's the truth. And I lived in Portland.
Yeah, I can at least identify with that. We've been quiet in here. We getting ready for church or something or what?
I started the recording.
You know.
Wanted to thank you for coming. I got the council, but you read six. That name is right. I don't know if you know that. I reckon, I know there's a band.
Just sit.
Okay. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you can send me one.
No, haven't seen it yet. It's right there. She's got it in her hand.
Right over there. Mr. Muse. How are you, sir? How about you? I'm very well right now.
Are you having a problem printing the packet too, Ben?
I know. But then you're a real.
Did you? I know.
I know.
I have a more about that, you know, a little top, you know, drink it up, but then when I take the top off, just a little bit left over, try to. And about 50-50, I make what I was doing it. It's just wrong, it's the wrong shape, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's good?
But what I've learned to do is, find it written on your thing, you're safe, but.
Yeah, I was
just
like,
grab
mine-
one out of the thing and it's a gag gift or something, you know? and-
Oh, it's a keg.
Yeah, but
Like,
then it's like,
yeah, I go with one that holds the greatest amount of content, that's the, like, I want as much teeth I can get with them for a second cup. It sounds silly, but that is why I picked this game, so.
I was turning me down for tea time. I've asked him to go to tea like 3 times. I can't even get an email response from him. I call the secretary and she doesn't know.
Hey, don't call my office.
Well, it goes by default. There's an article that you might enjoy reading. Good job on. I'm done.
Ben,
Thank
you
you.
don't have to sit there, you can sit here. I just needed to be closer to the keyboard.
After
bullet.
I know.
We're gonna be really cozy.
Nice type.
Thank you.
I'm making public comment. The survey thing, started,
Which survey?
the sewer thing.
Tracy.
That's what-
Sure, I get
The only public hearing.
Just what he wanted, Barry.
Yeah.
There's another guy fighting out for tea, Desmond Trinity.
Full house.
Yep.
One for you. Diet, I won't be able to get through there.
I won't be able to get you there.
We shake hands already. I think everybody comes in. But, oh, you must have come in last one. But thanks for coming. Mr. with a little too much respect. I thank you. My wife in terms of respect. Now, you know,
All right, 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Thank you all very much for coming. I would invite you to stand with me and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, can I address the council before we go in?
Yep, sure. I just know to let everybody know that Christy is out of the country and will not be joining us tonight. So we will be the 4 of you. So go ahead.
I'd just like to publicly apologize to Mr. Rice and also to the council for my comments about calling him out on the 18th of January meeting. It was in violation of our council rules of procedure, and I just apologize for that, Pat.
Mr. Cox, I think you're the greatest guy in the world, and you just demonstrated one of the reasons why that is true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I have 1 second too? I'd also like to second that. What I said not only was out of order, but it didn't add anything to any discussion. So I know I've already privately apologized to you, but just to let everyone.
Yeah, I really appreciated your email, and I'm glad to be working with you on the council too.
Thank you. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
And I apologize for not correcting them sooner. So I think that I've spoken with everyone who's sitting at the table. So maybe we can start fresh tonight.
And I agree with that. I look forward to starting fresh with you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, so public comments, now that we've moved through that part. There are some items on the agenda tonight that does encourage public comment, but other than that, this is your time to address city council if there's anything that you'd like to say. Go ahead. Make sure you introduce yourself and where you're from.
I'm Perry Coleman from North Bonneville, and thank you for the opportunity this evening. Well, I guess the hot topic was, as I watched last week, and of course, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Michael, for your apology to Mr. Rice, because I had a lot of sympathy for Mr. Rice. I firsthand know what he must have felt like. I think he composed himself rather well and remained professional despite the attack. From the outside looking in, it looked like it was premeditated, but that's just an observation, I guess. But at any rate, what I heard Mr. Rice say after being attacked consistently, I don't know if I could have composed myself, but he said, my customers are the most important, the voters. Let's represent the voters. Show them we care. These are the things I heard Pat say. Let's revisit. Let's slow down. Let's take our time. Search your hearts. I'm trying to help, not hinder. Please don't misinterpret my sincerity. And I don't know, it takes a big man to talk like that, especially after he's been accused and everybody just sat there. And some people knew he was being accused falsely. I have great issues with that. The people actually sat here and knew that he was being accused falsely, or at least it appears. So, but I'll stop on all that. You guys have pounded the drum. I thank you, Dave. I wanted to talk about Tracy's comment to the board about the officers we've lost, which is a kind of a state of the emergency. And I listened to what Tracy explained to you guys, but the word on the street is different. These officers have left because they're disgruntled, or at least most of them. So we're kind of in a state of the emergency. We have a division underneath that roof, and there's a lot of disgruntledness because of our Brady cop. And so I just wanted to correct the record. And if you want to add to it, you can. But I know out on the street, I've interviewed some people in Carson and different places. And they know firsthand that what was given to the council is not exactly the sentiments of many of the officers. So thank you.
Anything else?
Rick Jessel Stevenson, it's about the sewer committee. I could do it later, or I could do it now.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to thank the city council members and the staff for the outreach to the community for ideas on the sewer problem. I think it was a well thought out idea. I know much time was spent by the city council and staff in terms of organizing, facilitating, and actually attending meetings. So I appreciate that, and I know that a lot of effort was put in. I'd also like to thank the council and the staff for the opportunity to make some comments before and discuss outcomes with a diverse group of people who had different perspectives, history, experience, interests, and agendas from all parts of the community. People on sewer, people on septic, and who were directly affected by the moratorium and the ruling on septic tanks. So thank you for all of your efforts, and certainly is noted. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Saw some other hands. Mary? So introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mary Rapar Stevenson. A few things. I have filed a shoreline appeal for the shoreline development that was just approved by the Planning Commission. I do not agree with it. When public easements are given away and they're in the deeds, and they should be honored. And the public access is hard enough to get, never mind that our city starts to give them away to developers. Developers, yes, they're here to make money, but they should develop for the betterment of our entire community and its citizens. I'm really not concerned about their bank account. I'm concerned about my community and its public access to the wonderful area that we have. So that's been served on the city. Second, Highway 14 has become a real rattle trap. As many of you may have noticed, when your car hits that pothole and goes sideways. So it's going to have to be fixed. And I would like our city to employ its powerful voice and tell DOT we need to underground a lot of the stuff along 14. Maybe it's not in the city, but and put in broadband so that we can all have broadband service. We haven't done very much with the broadband committee that we have for the city, and I'd really like to see it become more active. Broadband's getting more and more expensive, and I'm not quite sure why, but it would be nice if the citizens of Stevenson had broadband service at an affordable rate. And one last thing, a monetary thing. I've seen cars with Oregon plates here in our community, which is okay. Some of them go home, but some of them actually live here. And as you all know, our car tags pay for our roads. So when I go to pay my car tag money at our auditors, it goes for Washington. And so I would like to see us investigate how much money is the state of Washington losing with cars that are not registered in the state, even though the people that own those cars live here, and that we are losing money and our roads need fixing. So I think we should put a little stressor on that. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I see another hand over here.
Nothing over here.
Anybody else on this side? All right, thank you. There have been some changes to the agenda. Those are listed on your agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Just say, could I take one item off that, please?
Sure.
And that would be item 4C for later discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm happy to make a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda minus item 4C.
So are we moving that further down the agenda then, Pat? Is that what you want to do?
Well, we can discuss it whenever you want, but we can discuss it when it's on the consent agenda, I don't think, so.
Well, you can because he still has to ask for further comments after the.
Well, that's fine. We can take it off the consent agenda and move it down. We'll move it down to 9A1.
9A1. Good,
Thank you.
thank you. I'll second.
I have a first and a second. And is there any discussion on the remainder of the consent agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
You. All right, sheriff's report.
Providing the documentation for our activities from the sheriff's department for the month of January. Do you guys have any questions or concerns about what you received?
Do you have a question? Last month, we, I guess, had 5 officers that were getting, or deputies that were getting replaced. Has there been any since then that have resigned or are leaving?
We currently have 4 in the academy, 2 in Seattle, and 2 in the new academy out of Vancouver. We just brought 1 on board that's going to start recently. We've applied for them to be able to attend the equivalency academy. And so that will be the 5th person to come on board. We have 2 corrections officers in the academy in Seattle.
So there wasn't a 6th deputy that's leaving.
We don't have a 6th position yet. We have 5 that are gone and we have 5 that are filled. They're not physically filled. They're all going through training.
Okay, so since the last meeting, though, nobody else has resigned or put in
No.
their, okay, thank you, that's all.
I want to make sure you understand that the people that we have acquired, they've made it very clear, they had other options to go to other agencies, but they've chose to come to Marion County because they like what they see. So you have people that want to be here. It's not somebody that's going to come here one day and be gone tomorrow. We are being very thorough about who we're picking and who we're having come to Skamania County. And these 5 people that we selected want to be here. They've expressed it very much so. And they're very good people. So another side note is I did talk to the training officer and I will be giving you a quarterly report of what training all officers have had during that time frame. Okay.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have a public hearing. This will be for utility rates and system development charges. So I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:12. And we'll give Liana a moment to reset.
Thank you.
So the staff memo, sort of outlines, items that were talked about at the past couple of meetings. Locations of where more direction is needed, and whether or not, the, consensus was correct. So, it's kind of where it's at.
Go through this now, but do we have a page number that I can jump to?
Yeah.
If you don't, I'll get there.
59 is the start of it.
All right, thank you.
That's where her letter is to us.
I go to the website and use the hyperlinks, so that's why I don't know what the page numbers are, sorry.
That's okay. Because then I know
Then
I went through this.
Right after her letter is the start of the
Yeah.
rates.
And so, I mean, I can kind of run through basically some of the questions that I have at the end. And it's, one thing that I thought I heard was the across the board rates for both water and sewer versus changing either of the rates to reducing the amount of water that's included in the base fee. And so both of those presented are the across the board annual increase of 7% for water from 2024 to 2028. Sewer rates, the across the board increase of 10%, 10%, 3.5%, 3.5%, and 3%.
And that would get us to the point where we,
And then 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the question again about the cost of service increase for the high and very high BOD users. Last meeting, there's also talk about adding different tiers for income brackets. And so I've added some information in there with also in talking with WAGAP, some of their requests. Other things about not being able to voluntarily shut off the meter and not pay the bill. So for temporary shutoffs or snowbirds, as well as properties that are vacant land and had a meter, options for those. Basically, the two options are just to continue to have them pay the base fees and no system development charge when they rebuild, or to require the customer to pay either the back billing from the time that they disconnected to reconnection or the system development charges, whichever is less. Talk about removing the construction water rate class, implementing the scaling options that were discussed for system development charges, and then the commercial connections to follow the new flow and BOD calculations, or to pull out some of the other standard rate multipliers similar to the existing structure, which is included in an ordinance that's attached. And I didn't change any of those. So those are all the questions that I have that are outlined in the memo.
I have a few questions and suggestions at some point. On page, I was happy to get the information on page 59 to where the packet, to where if you look for water and then sewer, that I had asked the question that if we did not have any rate increase, what would the deficits be? So if I'm reading this right, for 2024, the deficit for water would be 63,000, and for sewer, 145,000. So I'm reading that right, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, something I think we could take a look at. I think these rates, however justified they are, and that people will disagree on the level of that. It's a hardship on a lot of people, and I think we could strive to do two things. We could look internally within the operation of the water and the sewer and see and hunt for savings. Even if they're small savings, I think the fact that we do that and work hard at that will send a message to the citizens that we care. And then where we can't do that, because we just cut it to the bone, can't cut anymore, I think we can also look in the general budget, even though you can't intermix those funds, and say, hey, we couldn't cut everything. We would have wished we couldn't get those fees down there, but we worked hard to lower your taxes over here in the general fund. And hopefully that will balance out to the typical person at home. Now, here's an area that I think we could internally, or we could look at. As you know, Lee and I had been asking for the capital improvement projects for information for water. And I know it came to there were several $1 million of capital improvement projects in water. And recently I was given some documentation that supported that from 2017 and 2019. So basically those capital improvement needs were identified a long time ago. So we knew these rate increases were coming. So and that's why I was asking for specific information about concise information about each project, like what it was, why it was needed, and when it was needed, and how much it cost for each one, just a short amount. And the reason why is because it makes me wonder, well, I'd like to evaluate the necessity of all those projects. Is there a way we can trim some of them? I mean, and they very well may all be needed. But I, as just one vote out of 5, can't make that determination without that information. Now, when I asked for it recently, I was told, well, we don't really have time to produce that document. And I'm not being critical here when I say we've known about this stuff for a long time. So when I, as a council member, get almost 1,000 pages on it, and I'm told, well, just go find it in there, it's in there. But yet I can't get a brief description to tell me, well, what about this. I don't get any help diving into it and finding that information. I know it sounds critical. I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to say is I can't look at it and evaluate it very well.
And we can provide that information. I got that email yesterday.
No,
I can't turn around that fast.
Okay, but-
So the projects that are listed in the capital improvement program also were adopted and reviewed in the original adoption of the capital improvement program in 2022. So in May and June of 2022,
okay.
as well as May and June of 2023, there are public hearings on those projects as well. There's as far as like the documentation for that, all I have is a resolution that lists the projects and the dollar amounts. I don't have a complete document that has everything summarized, and that's what will take time. And that's why I gave you the plans, because in those plans, in the table of contents, it lists where those projects are listed.
And not
And
easy
that's
to
the
find in
detail,
that too.
but that's the detail. And so that's all I was able to provide
Okay.
with a day's notice. I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
No,
We can
and-
work on improving that for the next
Okay.
round of capital improvement program. We've been talking about trying to get a cut sheet for each project for the past 3 years.
Okay, so
It just
this-
comes down to staff time.
So this is, okay, so it wasn't just yesterday, and I'm not trying to be.
No, but we don't have it, I guess is what
I
I'm
know.
getting at. We've been trying to do it for a number of
For
years.
3 years, I know, and so we're
Right.
to this point for 3 years, and we still don't have that. And I'm just trying to say is I think we need that, because it wasn't just me asking for it yesterday. You just said it was 3 years ago, and some of these reports that are where the information is buried was from 2017. And I realize this sounds critical, and maybe it's easy to get defensive, and I probably would if I were in your shoes. I'm just trying to tell you what I need to help see if there's savings here. So.
So one of the concerns that you brought up was we knew about these projects and these plans and these costs in 2017. And what has happened since even 2020 is inflation and the cost of construction. It has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And more so for construction than just general inflation.
Yeah.
And so we had a 5% revenue increase for both water and sewer. And that was not enough for water for the projects that are currently listed. And most of those projects were identified in the plan, which is what I gave you. And so
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say they're not all legit. I'm just trying to
Right.
say that we need the information.
well, and
Yeah.
there's also projects that aren't listed on there, which will be identified further depending on what EPA does with future regulations.
Now, I think what it is, and let me correct one thing. You got a follow-up email yesterday, but it was over a week ago that I sent the original email, and you said it was coming out in the packet. And then when it came out in the packet, I found some stuff on page 120 and 121. And then I sent follow-up emails to you and says, what can you direct me to the pages? And then that's when I got the like 700 or 800 additional.
Well,
How does
so-
this have to do
No,
with
I'm-
water with? the-
Because I'm
rates?
correcting her misstatement that I had asked for this just
Well, you had
yesterday.
asked for the CIP list that was provided to the consultants that they use to calculate the rates, and that is why I included in the packet.
I think that, Pat, I get where you're coming from. Because when I look at this and I think about all of the projects, if you will, that encompass just water, let alone sewer,
Mhm.
and there's several different ones within those rates. Maybe we need to take a look at some of those different projects and back them out to lower the rates. Maybe they don't all need to be done in 2024 or 2025 or 2026. If I'm hearing you right.
That is exactly
And
right.
so, maybe you back out one of those particular projects to lower the cost, which will actually lower the rate.
Exactly.
Is
Thank
that
you.
where you're heading to?
Yes, and
And
I
so-
wasn't trying to be critical. I was just correcting a thing. It wasn't.
And it's hard to do that
Yeah.
if you don't have a summary of, okay, The Cascade project is, the Cascade Avenue project for the sewer is about $2 million. Okay, that's part of our sewer rates right now. That's included in the overall sewer rates that we've got set up.
And that project would be listed under your new debt obligations for both water and sewer.
Yes, so that's one of the examples of what I'm talking about. And if we need to back that off and move that from 2024 to 2029, how is that gonna affect what we're doing here? So anyway, I just throw that out as comment.
I don't think though,
So
I
wait a
mean,
minute. We've already broken order from public hearing, so let's try to get back on track. We've had staff report, we need to solicit comments from the public. first. So I need you guys to take a chill pill. And we do have this opportunity for the public to chime in and ask questions, so.
The sign up sheet is right there. then.
Sorry, Mayor.
Mary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mary Rapar Stevenson. I attended the meeting where your consultant gave her spiel and, good job. I paid my bill this morning, $161.17, the 5% increase from $153.50. And, I wasn't a happy camper. Rates can't keep going up for people. We have citizens in our community who live on fixed incomes, and I am among those. And I did not get a 5% COLA raise in January. So how high is high? And I think that's a question y'all need to ask. Your citizens need some relief. Once you get to 200, it's starting to be a choice between food, medicine, and whatever. So I would like to see you all consider, we have 1,400 connections, I believe, that belong to our water rights. As of this moment, if I remember correctly, I remember the number 697, somewhere around 700 connections. That is not going to pay for a $16 million plant. It's not going to pay for the water treatment plant, or the water plant that needs upgrading too. The citizens of this community, there's 1,400 people. They're not going to be paying for these capital improvement projects. I mean, we could, but then none of us would be eating or sleeping or anything else. So has to be a limit. And one of the things I heard at the last, at that presentation was that the large BOD users, whatever, were actually paying less than the residential folks. And that needs to be rectified. That's what I heard. So if you will correct that or not, but
Sorry.
no, just.
You have to correct it. It's based on their impact.
That's right. But the impact, there was an impact. And so I would like to see that addressed too, so that we're all paying a fair share. And I certainly would not like to see that 400 cubic feet go down to 200, as was suggested at that meeting. I think what that does, if I'm reading this correctly, is yeah, you're going to use 200, but then most people will go over 200, so they're going to be paying more for water. And that shouldn't be. We have enough water rights for our citizens. So those are some of the things that the main points. But the really biggie is we're going to price our own citizens out of water use at some point. People, $161 doesn't sound like a lot, but you have PUD bills, you have gas bills, you have this bill, and your check doesn't go up 5-10% every year. So I think we have to be cognizant of our citizens, the people who make this community what it is, because they live here, they invest here, and they volunteer here. And everybody wants to live here because of the people that made it, the community that it is. So we don't want to price our citizens out of living here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Leslie?
Well, I just wanted.
So, 1 second, if you could introduce yourself and where
I'm
you
Leslie
live.
Harris.
And
And, I
where
live
you're
in
from.
Stevenson. I just agree with Mary on everything. It's like, wow, you guys, you have no idea about the real people who live out here and pay for everything. But, you got those new meters in the water. Those are so cool for the worker. But I had a gusher and my outside faucet, and the tool my deceased husband left me to shut my water off doesn't work on the new meter. There's no way to shut it off. The city guy comes and he goes, shit, with this stand-up tool. And I was like, wow, that's neat. Can you make me one? No. So if I have another leak, there's no way I could shut my water off if I can't get a hold of a city worker. So that's gonna be a lot of wasted water. And it's like what Mary said. You know, we would like to buy an automobile because I just bought my first brand new automobile in my entire life. And the insurance is outrageous compared to what you pay for a junker car, you know? You raise the rates. I don't know, I might lose my car. You know, and most of our doctoring is in Vancouver, so, you know, my grandparents helped build this town. And it's just a shame that you're pricing everybody out of it. And that's it. I just agree with Mary.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:31. Now we can go back to council and staff discussion.
I have some comments.
Go ahead.
So I did the math to answer my own question, which was how much would the commercial rates? I was just looking at 2 years, the 10% increases for 2 years. How much would the commercial ones have to increase to limit non-commercial increases to 3.5%? The answer was an average of 75%. And it would not address the full cost of service inequity at all. So I feel like there's still some middle ground there. For example, if single family, multifamily, and commercial low, which were all, I believe, above cost, paying above cost of service, if those increase 7% per year for 2 years, multifamily would match cost of service, single family difference would still be paying over cost of service, and so would commercial low. And for that, the commercial medium would have to increase 13%, high would have to increase 60%, and very high 70%. So basically the cost of service discrepancy is so large that if the very high group doubled twice at 100% increases for 2 years, you would still need to double again to match cost of service. So I think there's some middle ground for adjustments there. The 13% on the commercial medium would also match cost of service for that group. But I was one thing I was wondering about is the multifamily. If that increases 7% per year, it matches cost of service, but single family is still paying over. What's the reason for that difference? Multifamily has lower cost of service just because of density. Okay. And then the other thing is the transient lodging, which is basically half the cost of a typical unit. So if somebody buys a 1-bedroom house to Airbnb, are they paying half the sewer cost? Or they pay the same as a single family residence?
You mean because they're considered a transient house as opposed to a residential single family
Yeah, like
dwelling?
does that rate only apply to like large scale hotels or is that any short term rentals?
Like Airbnb or
So,
something.
no, so Airbnbs we've been, that are in, especially in the residential zone, are residential, and so they pay the single family rate.
Okay,
So,
that's
but air,
specific to hotels.
well, those are, that are classified as hotels, so like our Bliss, they have 4 cottages, those are classified as hotels. The new development going in next to the next to the EMS, those are also classified as hotels and transient lodging, even though they're cottage style and similar to single families.
And do you have the numbers on like what's the amount that comes from transient lodging total?
Amount of revenue, or I can look at that.
Like compared to the other, like the total number for single family, 609,000 currently.
So Lucy, when you're talking of, bumping up cost of service for high and very high, which particular, graph are you looking at?
I was looking at the,
Is that the one where it says step 3? Allocate costs to customer classes?
the comparison that showed the difference between the cost of service and the revenue per group.
That was in the original, the packet, that was the numbers we had last month, so.
It's not in this packet, then,
It's down here, it's just a little farther.
you find the page.
This one, slide 4.
Slide 4, it's page
Yeah,
69.
yeah, that's where
Okay,
we're at.
got it.
Step
Okay.
3.
Is that something that you can share on the TV?
Pardon?
That's something.
It would take me a little bit longer.
I can quickly do, I'll show you the graphic. It's this graph here that they're looking at. Differences and see how there's a disparity at the top and then at the bottom. Anybody else want to look at it?
So last month for water, transient lodging was $7,100 out of 60,000. So about roughly a tenth of the revenue came from transient.
Okay.
And super rough, similar for sewer. So transient lodging was 20,000 out of 120,000. It's about a,
It's less than,
yeah.
The 120,000 is,
so
Sewer.
last month's sewer income. and
So, yeah.
20,000 was
Monthly,
from the
okay.
transient.
I think I was looking at the yearly numbers.
Oh, yeah.
I,
Yeah, you were looking at the.
Yeah.
But basically it's about 10%.
Between 10 and 20, depending on
water.
probably
and
the
sewer.
water. and-
So what's the reasoning for charging transient lodging unit at half the rate of a residential unit?
They're not occupied 100% of the time.
But they could be.
But as far as sewer flow goes, it's not 100% occupancy.
But yeah, we have that with, like residential, if someone's gone all winter long. I mean, I realize we could adjust that, and that was one of the ideas. So there's several different scenarios where somebody might not be using the service, and we have them pay for it anyway. So it seems like we might want consistency.
So if I understand correctly, if we remove that and transient lodging pays the same rate as a single family home per unit, it would increase our revenue by about 10%. I see.
So I think also keeping in mind, again, the conversation that Pat and I were both talking about is that this includes all of this rate study, includes all of the things that we have currently on the plan. So if for some reason the council would decide we need to somehow come up with a way to make this smaller, really the only way to do that is to cut some of those particular projects for a later date,
And,
in theory.
and an analysis of those projects, we may decide, oh, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But, so I'm not saying that one could take a hard look at them is all. And I think that it would, just as the people that are going to pay these increases have to take a hard look at their money.
This reminds me a lot of when we were trying to build the jail. And, initially, when they first did it, it was just a couple $1 million. And when they ended up with it, it's, multi-million dollars. And yeah, thank you. And we got to the 7 figure, but that's what we kind of settled on. It was a lot higher than that, Mary, before we started cutting away at it to try to figure out, okay, how can we make it work with the money what we've got? And I think that's where we're at here with this, is that, okay, what money do we have really available for us? And what do we need to repair now or put in place now, as opposed to putting that out a couple of years? And maybe we need to review those things.
When some of this stuff was mandated updates that we had right? As far as water and sewer, some of the changes we have to make, like we didn't
Right.
have an
Yes,
option.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Some of that stuff's just like,
And it's
this
already-
is it. We have to do
And
this.
a lot of those are already contracted.
Sure,
for,
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just
Yeah,
like,
right.
some of the stuff isn't like discretionary.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it is. Probably, but I know a lot of it is like, this has to happen based on
Mhm.
whatever, it's coming
Yeah.
down to us. You don't have a choice.
Also,
So-
keep in mind that some of the pickle that we find ourselves in is because these projects were kicked down the
From
road. and kicked down the
2017
road, and kicked down the road. The longer you kick them down the road, the more expensive they are
Right.
to accommodate, to actually get off the ground. So it was a conscious decision 3 years ago or so to be very mindful about staying ahead of infrastructure needs,
Sure.
so that we don't find ourselves staring down the barrel of a $16 million wastewater plant. So be very careful when you're looking at these capital improvement plans, so that it doesn't become louder at the other end.
Especially if you end up figuring out, okay, we have to do sewer. So then maybe we should probably, if we're opening up the street for the sewer, we'd better take care of the water at the same time and do other undergrounding stuff all at the same time, rather than open it up, close it up, then later down the road, open it up, close it up again. That
So
makes
now
a
you've
lot
done
more
3 holes.
fiscal sense. So, yeah, there's a lot of variables that play into this, so.
And it could be that there are some projects, depending on what they are, and I'm not suggesting it because I don't know yet, but it could be that we come to the realization on some of the big ticket items, we're a small town with a small tax base, and we have not that many people living here, and some things we just can't afford.
Right.
But at the same time too, there may be a way to leverage what money we do have with a grant that all of a sudden pops up.
Mhm.
And maybe we can now take that grant money, leverage it with the money to do that particular project in this area. So there's a lot of variables behind this thing, so.
Be mindful though, when we go after grants, if we pull all these things out of a plan, the grant people want to see that they're in your plan.
Sure.
So we will lose opportunities to apply for grants if we start chipping away at this project list. And I do feel like it's my responsibility as your public works director to implore you to understand the condition of our utilities before you chip away at these projects, because you have a lot of deficient pipes in your system, which is where the plan is coming from. It's not, let's replace it from usable material to another usable material. It's, this pipe is undersized. If you have a fire, your fire hydrant won't be able to supply the water that's needed. So it's those kinds of projects. So just be mindful as you chip away, like what you truly are chipping away.
Yeah, and I think you raised the point on why it's good to have, I mean, council may have had the information 2 or 3 years ago, but we have this council, and this council will need that information in a concise way that's understandable and digestible to be able to make these decisions. So you kind of, you're saying why I think we need better information,
Yeah, Pat, it's section 6. It's titled Capital Improvement Plan. It's got about a paragraph on each. So table contents are beautiful.
I know, and I looked at those, and your sarcasm is kind of rich, but I wasn't getting much help. So let's just leave it there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rest of the council, I don't think any of these projects are new to the rest of the council. So.
Well, Mr. Cox here seems to be thinking that we can do something here, so.
I'm just saying, maybe we need to take a look at it. I don't think we are ever at a point where nothing is off of the table. I think review is healthy. And we may decide exactly where we're at right now is where we need to be. But I think it's also prudent to just step back, take a look and say, yeah, our public works director says we need to have these pipes in place. Those pipes need to be in place.
Thank you, Dave.
And that way, then we can, as a council, say, hey, we've done our prudent investigation into it. Our staff says this. Finances say this. This is the way we need to move.
And I think too, that it can be talked further at the council retreat, because if this is a paradigm shift in how we want to address things, then it needs to be done, because we're moving forward with the plans and the direction that we've been given since the administrative order came down, which was, we want to see everything. What are the issues? What do we need to fix? And let's plan for it.
Yeah.
Because as I've done the research, we've known about a treatment plan or some sort of expansion in some way, shape, or form since 2006.
Yeah.
And so it just got more and more expensive as we kicked that down the road. And we're trying to at least have visual on what all we need to do and we need to address so that we are better prepared.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing? I did see that where it says section 6, there weren't page numbers. And so literally, I was scrolling through it this afternoon, trying to find that section, and I have to go through, I don't know how many pages, hundreds of pages, hunting for it, because it said, yeah, section 6, and then there's no page numbers. You're scrolling through it on the computer. So whatever.
Do you know how to OCR your documents?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not,
Yeah.
was not being
Yeah.
facetious, just
Yeah.
making sure you had
But
that.
I think what we have to try to do is, and I know it's hard because it's easy to get defensive, is not get defensive, but just help each other out. And it could be that I'm just not really smart, and I need more help than others. That it could be it. And so then you're going to have to work with me then, because I'm not that bright. And so that's what we have, what we're working with. So I'm not asking these questions or say I can't find something or say I need help to be mean. It's because I'm struggling trying to find it, or I'm not getting the description I need. I'm not getting the help I need. So
And I
that's,
responded to you at 10 o'clock last night, trying to help you.
Okay.
So-
yeah,
we
we're
are
not getting
quickly
anywhere.
veering off topic
Yeah,
here.
okay.
Let's try to wrap this portion up. We have a capital improvement plan that has been on the docket for a couple of years now and has been approved every year based on the marching orders that have been given to the city council for several years. So the way this discussion right now is completely going through and untangling a capital improvement plan that has been the same, or at least been the same vein for quite some time. So I'm not sure how that works into the timeline of working on rate changes if we're going to completely revamp a capital improvement plan while we're doing it. So it's a good thing we've got a council retreat coming, or strategic plan coming up, because this is really pushing the rates study much further out than we had anticipated when we started this. So what other comments do we have so that we can figure out what additional information is needed?
So other than the dollar amounts of the rates and the percentage increases, are the structural changes that are listed? Is there direction on those structural changes? And I get by structural changes, I'm talking about the removing of construction water, the snowbirds, and then the income tier. So those types of changes, which are outside, and then the scaling options for the system development charges. I'm not talking about the rates or the increases. I'm just talking about the structure of that.
Those all look good to me. The discount tiers for lower income. And I feel like if people want to own a house here, they should be paying the sewer.
I think what you, excuse me, Lucy, I think what you have here written down, I think these are the things that we need to move forward with. As far as what
the rates are.
What the rates are,
Yes, that, yes.
what drives those rates, I think that's a totally different discussion. But as far as where you're at here, as far as the action needed goes, I feel comfortable with this.
What page are you on?
Page 65.
Page,
Thank you. Thank you.
That was the discussions we had. I think we all, the idea of the scaling of the system, development charges, like we all, that was kind of a consensus that seemed like a good idea. And some of these other, like the things that we were all like, yeah, we all kind of corporately agreed to those things were.
Okay, and on that page, can I ask a point of clarification? I mean, by saying that looks good as far as this also has the rate increases on there. So I think when we say, hey, the direction of this looks good, we're not speaking of those rate increases, right? Because we're going to be working on those.
Right,
seeing
no.
what we can do.
I'm just
Okay.
talking
so
about the structure,
yeah.
not the rates,
not the
not
rates,
the dollar amounts,
Right.
not the percentages, just.
Yeah. Right.
In other words, you're go up a certain percentage in 2024, a certain percentage 2025,
right, yeah.
and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was real happy to see, and I think you did a lot of good work, I thought, on terms of incorporating in the low income stuff. And I think Lucy gets credit for that idea. But I think that's really good.
And also make sure that you're very careful when you start looking at the rates for the commercial connections. If you price them out, they will leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not an economy that is going to do anybody any favors.
Yeah. It's a dual-edged sword, what we're walking with here.
And it is,
You want those businesses here.
yeah, and it is true what was said is that no matter what you did there, it's not really going to help you much. No matter, you
We
could
talked
double
about,
and
we
triple
double
it.
it and it brings it
Yeah,
0.5%
so that
for the.
fact in there.
Well, speaking of the transient lodging, if
Yeah, that
they
was-
pay the same per unit as a single family, that deals with the one entire year of 10% increase on its own.
Yeah,
So
no,
maybe
and that
we
was
don't have- maybe we
notable.
don't have to go all that way, but I feel
Yeah.
like we could adjust that as well. Especially when short-term lodging is part of the reason that rent is so high.
Well, but the short-term lodging right now is paying single-family pricing. The Airbnbs are, the things that are not would be the
Yeah, that's
cabin
what I was
or the
talking about.
hotels. So, yeah,
Adjusting those.
gotcha. Yeah, no, Dave, your water's scaring me. It's sitting on its end on the other side of the keyboard.
Why is it scaring you?
Because I feel like it's
On
just
the
gonna
edge.
be a problem.
Put on it, man.
It's gonna fall
Dave,
off.
I don't
There's
trust,
5 kids, I know how to put
I
it on.
I don't trust it, Dave. All right, sorry, we're back.
So for clarification, are you talking about making sure that like Airbnbs are paying a full rate versus Skamania Lodge?
I mean,
Because
I'm
that-
talking-
is that-
I'm talking
or are you
more
talking about Skamania
adjusting
Lodge
what the
also?
Skamania Lodge pays, yeah.
So are you talking about Skamania Lodge also paying a full single family rate? per unit?
Maybe not the full, but maybe we can adjust it upward from where it is.
Is it not based on the number of rooms?
It is, and so right now in the current ordinance, they can pay based on basically half of the residential rate based on the number of rooms, or they can pay based on their water meter size. So they have that option.
Okay.
And so, I can look to see what that would be. I mean, the lodge is the biggest, business that would have an impact. And I can look at the others as well, and see what that would be for them.
One other thing on these that I think we could look at, and I hesitate to say because we know it's a sensitive subject on what we've already discussed, but one thing we could also do simultaneously or over time is we know we cannot intermix general fund stuff with this, but I do think we can look at those, and then whatever rates we have to say, I think it's a really good message to the citizens that we can say, you know what, we couldn't do everything we wanted to do here. We did some, whatever that might be, if we can. But we also looked at our general fund budget. And although it's not going to be reflection in your water and sewer rates, we made some cuts. And here's the areas of those cuts. Whether we have a task force look at that, and I might propose a task force of experts that can go through that budget. And we have a lot of people in the community I've met that have dealt with billion-dollar budgets over the years that could then look for cost savings. And maybe there are none, but that scrutiny I would want even on my pet projects, if I had a pet project. So it's not a criticism of current operations. It's just in a $5 million budget. You can always find something, and then you can say to your ratepayers, hey, we hope this lowers your tax bill. This is what we cut, A, B, C, and D. And so just have that looked at independently. I think it's a smart thing to do. It's what I've done with my budgets every year since I started keeping track of my money in my 20s, and just to show the public that we're also doing that. So I think we should set up a task force to do that. And I'm happy to even share it for free. And I didn't mean that.
I think you're on the right track, Pat. Having dealt with the budget with the sheriff's office for many, many years, and the commissioners coming back 3 or 4 times in a given year saying, we need another 50,000 or we need another 100,000 for you to get rid of. I think those are viable options. I would be concerned that it's whether or not our citizens are going to feel the impact of that as far as their tax statement, because tax statement versus rates that are coming out of my pocket every month, they're 2 different issues. And I think that the ones that we really need to concentrate on right now are the ones coming out of my pocket every month, because those are the ones that really affect the livability of our citizens here. Tax rates are what they are, but these types of issues I think we need to make sure we are really clear on and where we're going with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we can do both. And I realize that it might be just a communication thing with taxpayers and say, this may or may not be reflected on your bill, but here's some painful steps we took over here that weren't pleasant.
Absolutely.
So in other words, I think I think most of the public actually is probably a lot smarter than I am and more sophisticated than I am, and they'll get it. They'll get the message. But
So
it
what do you
sounds,
need from us?
Stick to the topic of sewer rates. So, is there any other comments?
Do you have what you need from us as far as the
As far as the structure goes, as far as the rest, I guess I'll wait until the retreat.
Doing that before the March meeting, because you have.
March second, yeah, March 2nd is gonna be the,
Just to remind council, you have to
Retreat.
have your ordinance plugged in with your rates identified by the time of the second meeting.
well, I think that's what we're talking about. It might be pushed out even farther. So,
Got to publish it again?
Yeah.
You're looking to save costs.
how much is it to publish it?
It's just you pushing them out.
Tell you what,
every time
I'll
I
pay
do a
for it.
public hearing,
My donation, I'll cover the cost of publishing. How about that? I said it publicly. Just don't worry about that.
Just again, reminder, you can't pass a blank ordinance. So you can't have a plug-in later.
Correct.
When you guys go to pass or vote on your ordinance, you need to have your information ready. If you're gonna do that, your retreat, thumbs up.
The next progress billing report from the sewer plant's coming up too.
Okay, say again.
You want to cover that one?
Right?
For the sewer contractor?
Oh, no, just that one. Just that one.
Just that one.
Okay, now I got it. I'm sorry. I didn't-
It was.
So just a question
No,
then,
sorry. I didn't.
Lucy, especially to you. Are you good with the 10, 3.5, 3.5, 3 percentages? And Pat, this is to you as well. As opposed and reviewing then what makes up those rates? In other words, what projects make up those rates? If we back some rates out, that 10% is gonna be less than what it would be if we had everything. You understand what I'm saying?
I know you're, and
So are you good with the percentages?
yeah,
Because we know what those percentages are probably gonna be what drives us to get to our final
do
cost.
you want to answer first? Because
Yeah, I think
that's
the
me.
issue is just how are those distributed between the different
Yeah.
groups of users? And I think we can bring down the percentage for non-commercial users with some other adjustments.
Yeah. And if your question, if I'm reading it right, saying the fact that what amount we do in year one, what amount we do in year 2, 3, as far as that, I'm fine with the direction that's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's uncomfortable is how high those percentages are. So we can lower those as far as the distribution of those. I get it, and it might be, and in the sewer, it's gonna be hard too, I realize, because a lot of that's already contracted for. And we
Well,
have the debt.
yeah,
stuff.
and
So, yeah, I'm fine with,
And
but if I get what you're saying. fine.
the
It's not
amounts, say 10% in 2024. If you're at 10%, is it 10% of $500,000 or will it be 10% of 300,000?
Okay,
And as you move those across the board with those same percentages, you're gonna end up with a lower final figure in 2028 based on those. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's
I
gonna,
think
it's
so.
gonna raise accordingly, depending on what you do across the board.
but these percentages are based on the rates now, though, they're not based on your expenses, so that's where I'm getting confused. They're not based on your outlay.
Well, they are, they're based on the alley to pay for the alley. That was the other
Right.
chart.
That was the other
So,
chart.
Yeah.
Those rates are based, and again, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm
No,
saying.
no, and I'm not either, I'm
percentages
trying to
are right.
understand.
Right, no, I'm saying, where was that one that had like, it was a cool looking graph that showed each year and why we were going that way. Go.
Oh, I think I know, yeah, I know.
Do you know what I'm
graph
talking
you're
about?
Yeah.
It was, page 103, page 103. It's this one,
Yeah.
Pat.
Yeah, no,
And so
So-
that's,
we're looking at the things I want to look at.
Okay,
So
yeah, no,
I'm
I'm good.
satisfied,
Okay,
yeah,
good,
we don't
good,
need to get in,
good.
we're heading in the right,
sure.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
heading in a direction.
No, and I wasn't, I was just,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when we talked about that, that's
Yeah.
why the dollar amounts and whatever.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna be looking at expenses here. And
Yeah.
that's,
Very careful what you kick down the road.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we're in the position we're in
Well,
now.
and the
having
good
these
news
Very
is
uncomfortable conversations.
we haven't, we haven't kicked anything down the road.
Yeah.
We're just gonna look at it, so we know what we're talking about.
So I think overall, to sum this all up, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, what we want to do is take a look at the plan and see what the costs are associated with those individual projects.
Mhm.
And then we can make a decision accordingly. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that, for my.
And we may not make any changes at all
Mhm.
and stick to these figures, but that is the information that you're
Yeah.
looking. for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
does
All
that
right.
resolve that?
I believe it does.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He just-
Oh, no, I asked.
Yeah.
All right.
Where do we at?
7A. and we're
7A.
So are you going to take this to March 22nd or are you gonna vote?
We're not voting.
Yeah, second hearing.
There was never a plan to vote tonight.
Yeah, there's no vote.
All right, so that brings us to situational updates. This, so Liana or is it Liana?
Kicking that to bed.
I'll try to take it over. So at the last meeting, after the two presentations, we briefly touched on the final report from the sewer septic committee that was put together. We are prepared to start incorporating some of those recommended changes. Broadly, those recommended changes are to have a very light hand with existing septic systems as sewer is extended. But once it's and have a light hand once it's extended past. To have a much heavier hand with commercial and subdivision development, and to influence the conversation that you just had about rates for the city to do the extensions and add to that.
Right,
Add to
yeah.
Everything that you just said. That's broadly the recommendations of the committee. They gave their report at the last one. On page 137 of the packet tonight, this is how that starts to look. This figure was put together in advance of the final committee meeting, and it showed some areas that we were thinking could be more flexible. Those would be the green colored. I haven't worked with all of you enough to know whether anybody's colorblind, so I apologize if anyone is colorblind. There are green and red colors on this, which I'll find a way to change moving forward. Green would be being more flexible than what the sewer committee was recommending. Red would be opportunities to be more stringent than what the committee was recommending. And then there's some highlighting for things that just don't seem to work. And so before we put this together for a public release draft to go out to a broader community, wanted some input from city council talking about some of these specific things. There are, let's see, on page (135) of the packet. There are some preloaded questions for you about guidance that we're hoping to get for things like the appeals process. And then wanted to talk through some of these other issues. So wanted to start with the
135.
135.
Yeah.
The subdivision and short plat one is the one I think I need to kind of explain more, because when we have in our mind something like subdivision, we're thinking of 80 lots, we're thinking of hundreds of lots, we're thinking of a large scale development, but the actual dividing line between a short plat and a subdivision is 1 lot. A short plat is 4 lots, a subdivision is 5 lots. And so if we put this on the ground, you could have a 4-acre lot on this side of the street. Propose a land division that's 4 1-acre lots on this side of the street. These regulations say that's fine, you can do the septic on that. On the opposite side of the street, there could be a 5-acre lot proposing 5 1-acre lots. And these regulations say that this owner has to bring sewer to that. They can't do septic. And so that using subdivision and short plat just seems like the wrong metric to use, because it's not equitable for those two owners. They're all just creating 1-acre lots. So
would the change then be to a long plat versus short plat?
it's the same. It's short
Same
plat.
thing.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend?
I think, and I don't have the solution for what it would be, but I think it would be something based on the lot size. So
Square footage?
yeah. Yeah, or dimensions compared to the minimums of the zone or something there. And I haven't, like I said, I haven't put it together to know what exactly to recommend, but using this doesn't seem to work.
Right. And the difference between that example kind of makes it clear that two people that own 2 pieces of property, if you cut it into one more piece, sorry, you got to run sewer from wherever it is up to your place, right?
And if I remember correctly, there's minimum lot sizes for septic systems. So that may play into it as well, as far as what type of a lot size they have versus. Yeah.
Versus the number of lots.
Yes.
Here's just a suggestion.
Mhm.
What about all the nitty gritty stuff here that we're gonna get into like this? And maybe this is a really bad idea. I don't know. We have some people from the sewer committee here. What if you just had a very small group of the sewer committee, the people that like Wes Houston and two others, and we just turf this them because they've done so much valuable work that got us to this point and so much direction. And all these type of questions where, hey, what about this or what about that? And we could we turfed it to them, but yet, hey, get this done by the next council meeting so we can present this and we can say, hey, this looks like a final plan. In other words, staff, could work with them or Carolyn and say, this isn't quite right. Have that little discussion, just like pick 3 people, not 17. Just the committee would just pick like 3. And then it just would ease the workload of the council because, and to get to all these questions. But that's just an idea. Maybe it's not a good one. Because we know we're not going to be making any decisions tonight, because I end up with some questions like, and I know we're not going to get any of this resolved tonight anyway, but some of the notes I make, like some of the comments from staff, like some things like like you got into the developer, can a developer, let's say somebody comes in and wants to develop these lots. Some of the comments said, well, the developer under this plan, the developer would not be able to, like, here's one, does not allow, requires, I mean, doesn't allow the developer to extend to the property. Like if you had somebody come in and they were going to build an apartment complex, I don't think I'm being clear, and they wanted to, and there wasn't a sewer line there, they would have the right, if they wanted that sewer line before the city was going to put it in, to pay for it, right? And put it in. Is that true? They would have that right now under.
And they would
Okay.
still have that right. This
That's
doesn't
what-
require them.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused, and maybe I was. like- So they would always have
Maybe it's
that
the
right if they
requirement.
wanted to.
Good.
There's nothing that ever
Well,
preclude
almost
them.
let everyone pay for their own
Okay,
construction.
so that was just me misreading
No,
something. there.
it's not,
Thank you.
it's not totally misreading it. The way it was presented by the sewer committee, it says this is the only option.
Okay,
The way it's
yeah.
reflected in this draft, there's both options.
Okay, good. And that's one thing, if it went back to the sewer committee and say, just have them do some of the heavy lifting here is all I was suggesting. But I don't know, and Mr. Houston's here, maybe he'd like that idea. I mean, maybe if they're willing to do some more work on this, but whatever. But because you also had comments like this would be, if we did this, it'd be, some of this potentially could be legal issues like gifting versus non-gifting. Well, then those 3 people, let's say if you wanted 3 or 4, a small group, they could sort that all out with legal counsel and then make a final recommendation to the council that's got all those nitty gritty, tough little things sorted out. Is it legal or is it not legal? Rather than have the council sort out all this, because look at the water sewer rates alone is a pretty heavy lift for the council.
Some of it is on the council though, and the reason why I say that is that the committee members there were brought in because they had a vested interest in the outcome of that topic. And there's some duty for the council, or at least that's where some of these questions are based in, particularly with appeals, which I'll try to bring into this, where the city council might take a different view from that committee. And so the committee's formation and the outcome of it was to take a very light hand with existing septic systems out there.
Yeah, whatever, just
and where that light hand comes in, we've talked about having an appeal process even when there is a requirement to connect. And that appeal process, right now, there is an appeal process for requirement to connect. It comes to city council. And there's no guidelines, there's nothing for the city council to look at or weigh it against. It's just you all sitting here with no information based on anything, and except for the owner coming in with the request. And so wondering if you want to see some guidelines built into that. For example, if there's a potable water well that is in some way contaminated near a septic, should that be something that goes into an appeal? Like, is it evaluated as part of an appeal decision? There's no contaminated potable water, well adjacent to this. That septic can stay. Same for, stream that might be near the property. There's no water quality, fecal issue with this stream, so that septic can stay. Alternatively, there is an issue. And so the reason why I bring this up as to you is because ultimately it's going to be your duty to, or your successor's duties to make those decisions. So do you want those tools to make that decision? I don't think that you're going to get an answer from those committee members that we brought together that says take a harder stance on existing septic systems because they were organized to say take a easier stance, lighter touch.
I think the guidance that we get for all those caveats need to be there. Because if you have a existing septic system versus whether you're going to put in a new one, if you're putting in a new one, then those caveats need to be there. They need to be, you need to know if there's a potable water source, close, how close are to the stream. And I don't know if there are health regulations on top of that, they kind of cover over each other. I don't know that. But I think that those are all things that need to be in place so that we are doing the right thing on this.
I would want to have as many pieces of information involved with the appeal to evaluate it.
Right, I think one of the things that we've talked about, I think this is kind of what you're talking about, like when we had the annexation thing, there weren't there's not a lot of guidance on how we made that decision. And so we're looking for something structured like this that would help us go, okay, if it falls into this, it's not just we think this is a good idea. It's these are the reasons that this makes sense for the city as a whole. So anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm in total agreement is one person here that you should have all this figured out in the final ordinance in the appeals process. We shouldn't go
how we figure it out.
Yeah, no, we shouldn't go through all this and then have these unanswered questions like what if, like you brought up, what if this person has a well, or what if this is happening? We should fix as many of those issues and have that predetermined what the rules are as we can. Right. So I think we're all on the same page as far as that goes.
No, I understand what you were saying, just kind of, where we would, some of this stuff could maybe, some of these things that are different, or maybe this isn't quite legal, or we don't know if it's going to be legal, kind of you're saying hammer some of those up and then bring it back to.
No, I just thought if you had a small group that could hammer some of that out, and then, just do some of our, the decision rests with the council. I think that's been clear the entire time.
Right.
So I don't think we're abdicating our responsibility by having a small group of people that are experts that have really proven themselves. It probably, like I would have probably argued, Wes Houston might know more than any of us sitting here on this because he's worked so hard at all this. So just getting those brains on this, some of these details, just a little bit more push is all I was advocating. Right. I'm not disagreeing with anything you folks are saying. And if it rests with us, fine, it rests with us. That's no problem. I don't care. I mean, if we hash that out ourselves, that's okay. Right. I mean, whatever you guys want.
Well, we're also on the agenda looking at council workshop agenda schedule as well.
Oh, right.
Oh, that'd be a good topic for council workshop.
Well, that workshop is 4 hours or something, isn't it? So,
That's right.
Versus having the meeting.
Just going till 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing
Nothing.
no updated drafts, no more meat to chew on for that workshop, just bringing thoughts to it.
Bring it to it and we'll just start chewing on it.
Chipping away.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
You're at 8A. The City Hall ordinance, City Hall hours ordinance.
Good. So a quick, can I start?
Well, looks like there is
Go.
a, an update.
Yes.
Yeah, staff memo.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, taking notes. Again, so, the changes were done, back in October, and there was no outreach done at that time. If council is going through to do an ordinance, a recommendation would be to poll the public to see what services they need and what times they need them to ensure that we can serve them, versus making a change. They may need hours earlier, they may need hours later. They may need some other types of services available in different ways. So that's a direction that can be taken.
I think a survey is a good idea.
I think I agree, because I really want to know what the public is looking for. On the other hand, I don't have a problem with City Hall being open on Fridays. The issue that I have is whether or not City Council is going to dictate to the city manager whether or not how she's going to effectively manage the workflow of the city staff on any given day. That I have an issue with. If you, Liana, decide that Fridays we're going to set aside for staff to be able to work on projects and not be interrupted, that is something that falls under your purview. It doesn't fall under the city council's purview. You've been hired to run an effective office. That does not preclude the fact that somebody can walk in with an appointment and say, hey, I need to talk to Ben. That's a totally separate issue. But if they need to come in and pay a water bill or something like that on Friday, they can get that taken care of and leave. But as far as staff and how they do the workload and everything, I still think that falls under the purview of you. That's why we've hired you to run the most efficient staff that we can.
I read the RCW differently than that. What I read the RCW, I don't have the number right in front of me, that but that city council sets the office hours. It sets the hours the office is open.
That's all they can do though.
Yeah, right. And so
Stop.
no one,
Hard stop.
I don't, yeah, and no one's
Can't
in it.
tell them what to do once they
Well,
open.
I didn't know that was part of the discussion.
Oh, I was just following up with
Yeah,
David
right,
said.
no. So, yeah, so I would agree that with that. I mean, I don't think any of us are wanting to control the staff, but along those lines, I mean, I just thought the city council sets office hours. And that's all.
City offices shall be kept open for the transaction of business during such days and hours as the legislative body of the city shall by ordinance prescribe.
Yeah, so that's all. So that is our purview, and that's what we're talking about. There is something that, and I think a survey is a really good idea. And one of the things to think about too, while that's happening, is I think it is totally true that a staff member needs time to concentrate. And the setup of the office, I can see why this was done, because the setup of the office doesn't really lend itself to that. If somebody comes in the front door and they see, oh, Ben working on a project, or young Ben, they say, hey, I got a question for you. And he's trying to concentrate on something he needs to get done. So I totally get that. And so while we're getting the public's opinion, if the council, if that's the way we go on things, I would just ask internally for there to be some thinking about, is there a way we can accomplish that goal? Even if we set office hours that included Friday. For example, some type of flex time or something. In other words, where staff members get, okay, this is your day to where you get no interruptions, whether you're working from home, whether you're working in an office, it's in the basement but this is your private time. And to where and this isn't me trying to tell this Liana how to run it. I'm just trying to say is come up with some of that out of the box thinking to where then we can have both. We can accomplish the goal that was wanted, that set this up, closing it on Friday, yet at the same time, we, of course, at this point, I'll be advocating that we have it open on Fridays but depending on that survey results we get back, that may change my mind on that. So, but you get what I'm saying. So staff could internally just be thinking themselves creative ways to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish in the first place when this was set up. And maybe that might, if that hard thinking is done internally, and then we get the survey results, the answer may come together pretty quickly.
Is it start for public comment?
No.
Oh.
So it sounds like we're gonna wait for the survey then.
Okay. I guess Mary's question, and I don't know the answer, is on this section, is there a time for public comment before we go on to the next agenda item?
There's not.
Okay, that's what I wasn't clear.
So we can write a letter.
You can participate in the survey.
Will there be an option to write out what your suggestion is? Yes.
Okay, committee appointments is next. This is 8B.
I'd like to request a change on that. What's that?
150.
I'm only at 154. I'm still getting down there.
158.
I would like to, along with Pat, I would also like to be on that committee. Only because I have a real interest in the grants that are available, or possibly available. So I would like to request to be on that committee as well, Community Action Team.
And in talking with Cindy, so the community action team, in essence, approves the list by consensus. So there can be more than one appointment. But where there will need to be designation is for the 0.09 funds. And so there will need to be someone designated for that. And that's where applications come to the 0.09 committee, and 0.09 funds are for distressed counties, and it's a kickback of sales tax. And it's used for economic development type of projects.
And I wouldn't mind. Now, my understanding is the CAT and the 09 funds, they meet at the same time typically.
Yeah, it's typically the CAT meeting first and then 0.09 funds right after that.
So yeah, so like most people probably would attend both meetings anyway, or what?
I mean, honestly, people that aren't part of the 0.09 funds, they leave. So you just attend CAT and leave the 0.09.
Well, I'd be interested, I don't know, of being on both, they're related, so. If there's nobody for the 09 funds, I'd like to be pointed to that.
Okay, so also keep in mind that you'll be representing the city council for that, so you will have to carry forward the wishes of city council when you're there.
Yeah. Well, I'll go by the bylaws there. In other words, because I mean, I'd have to take a look at the bylaws. I do
Bylaws for
like that.
the council or the CAT.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is I represent the citizens of Stevenson.
Well, you do, but when you go to these committees, Pat, you represent the council's wishes on where we want to go with specific issues. So,
Well, actually, the council, I mean, we don't know what's happening at these committees, really.
well, yeah, Liana has been attending these committees as well. I don't
All
know
of the
who,
projects that go on the CAT list are from the CIP and are projects that have been discussed at council.
The way I understand these committees is they figure out, they distribute, they have a discussion among themselves of the different entities on how to distribute this grant money.
0.09, no, so the CAT fund is so for example, First Street. When that project first came about, we were looking for funding. And so we go to the CAT, the Community Action Team, and we say, hey, we're gonna apply for funding for this project. Can you please add it to the list and please put it, it's a project that we're currently seeking funding for. What other projects are seeking funding? And let's add it within that list, wherever it will fall, hopefully in the top 5. While you're actively seeking funding. When you apply for those funds, you say it's a tool that will help you score higher when a regional body also supports the project. There are no dollars related to CAT.
Oh, right, yeah, and I didn't mean.
It's just associated with
It's a
helping
coordination
you when you apply for funds. But CAT has no funds at all. And then those projects for the wastewater treatment plant project went on. So what Skamania County, every county in the 5-county Mid-Columbia Economic Development District region comes up with their list. And and then those lists are combined and they go to the Mid-Columbia Economic Development District and they rank them as a whole. And then you have a Washington list and an Oregon list. And if it's ranked on those lists for their CEDS list, which again is the Community Economic Development Strategy, then it also then helps with funding. And so there's different, and that's again, the Skamania, Klickitat, Wasco, Hood River, and Morrow counties to where all the projects are ranked. And that's what CAT is. Again, it's for here, it changes quarterly. The county approves it quarterly. And then McEd approves it annually. And then it's included in their regional packet update when they do their strategic plan every few years as well.
Yeah, well, I'd be willing to do the 09 and be on the CAT fund with him, so.
You can be on the list.
No,
I didn't see it on the list.
0.09 isn't on the list, and so that's why I clarified with, so I can add it to the list and add the definition of what 0.09 is. But typically, there was only one person on CAT, and so they were just default to 0.09.
Yeah.
again, I have no problem with Pat being on the 09, but I would just ask that you present the council's wishes on it, even though we disagree on many things within the council individually. When we leave, the decision, the power of the council is we operate as a council. And whatever the wishes are of the council, that is what we move forward with the public, even though we have our own constituents, so to speak, that we deal with on a daily basis.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
even though I may not agree with what the council wants to do on a given situation, when I go out of here, I don't work trying to undermine that or try to get my own agenda on. So I would just encourage you to know make sure you're up to speed on where the council wants to go with the direction of those things.
I hear what you're saying, and there's no point in getting into a wider discussion on the philosophy of this, but I hear what you're saying in reference to these two committees.
Okay.
That changes that was the change. Did anybody else have any other changes for committee appointments? Are we ready for a motion then on that? All right.
So wait a minute, are you still staying on the 09 and the CAT?
So Pat would be on 09. And then, Pat and Dave would be on CAT and I would be staff support. on
All right, so now we're clear on, we're good on that. I would like to make a motion to approve the committee appointments with the changes that were discussed in this meeting.
Lucy comes in quicker than that.
Yeah, I'm not.
All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Liana, first read of ordinance extending interim financing.
So the USDA loan that's paying the 20% portion of the collection system project needs to be extended because the project has been extended for multiple reasons, some of them COVID related. And so this is extending it out 1 year. Unfortunately, the interest changed.
Is this the one with part of the, like the electronics we haven't been available to get and all that kind of stuff?
No, that's the treatment plant project.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mix it up. Okay,
So-
I'm sorry.
No, this one,
That's a good question. So, no, because I'm wanting to know a little more too. So
about why the project
That was
was
the
delayed.
just a quick,
Related.
just a
Yeah,
quick-
just
quick
delays
description of
of,
what this 873 is, and I realize it's in the packet there.
So the whole project, it was phased. So phase 1 was replacing, the Rock Creek lift station, as well as a section of an interceptor, which is a line that goes from the southeast end of the parking lot by the fairgrounds all the way up to Rock Creek, up to the Rock Creek lift station, and then also the force main from the Rock Creek lift station then into the plant. That needed to be done before the new headworks were put in at the plant because there wasn't enough power at the earlier lift station to get it there, as well as that lift station did not have enough capacity to hold effluent during rain events. And right before this project, we were inches from overflowing. So that was phase 1, and that was completed
November of last year.
Yeah.
Or 2 years.
Sorry, 2022, November of 2022. And then phase 2 is the fairgrounds lift station, the Cascade lift station, which is right next to the port, and the Kanaka lift station, which feeds basically all of the east end of town, collects all of the west end of town. And so it's in the wastewater system plan, it's actually doing phases 1 and 2 of those projects. And so we received a $4 million grant from the Economic Development Agency. And then the city kicked in some funds, and then the USDA is kicking in some funds as well. The project overall is going to be over the original estimate of $5 million, and the city's paying for that difference.
And this is part of the sewer rate package as well, correct? It's all figured in. Okay. I'd move to approve ordinance 2024-1207, authorizing the extension of the bond anticipated note in the maximum principal amount of $873,000, pending issuance of a water and sewer revenue bond for the wastewater system upgrade project.
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, which brings us up to revising the fire chief pay.
Okay, so that's going the reason I asked this to be taken off the consent agenda is I was in contact with Leanna and Rob Ferris on this. I tried to call Rob Ferris on Monday and we didn't connect. And I asked him, but we did today, and I asked him some questions. I was trying to figure out well, one of the questions I asked him is I said, how much are you getting now per month as a volunteer? And he said $100. And so I was trying to figure out the rationale or how it came about that we would go from $100 to $1,000 a month. And what Rob basically said is he didn't know that this was the first that he knew about it. Then I sent him a follow-up email that I didn't get an answer to, and that question was, my point to him was, well, you do a lot of good work, and I'm not questioning that one bit, but would you have any objections if we chirp this to the fire station board, fire district number 2 to the board and have them look at what they think as a volunteer, you being the fire chief, should make, and then look at things like, and maybe this has already been done as far as, and look at things like what other volunteers for things are, places our size get, what do the volunteers get and stuff like that. And so anyway, I just thought because of the rate increases and everything we're doing, we just needed to watch every penny. And since, so I just, that's why I didn't want to just rubber stamp it, because it was a difference of $900 per month, which is a bigger amount when you times it by 12. And there's things I don't know the answer to, like if we had gone to Rob and we said, Rob, boy, you're working really hard, you only make $100 a month. Could we give you $400 a month? I don't know that he wouldn't have been pleased with that and not even wanted $1,000 a month. And because he seemed that this seemed to come out of the blue for him. So that's why I'm just suggesting that we don't turf the decision to them, but we just turf it to the fire district board and have them look at it. And one of the reasons I'm suggesting this is we did have a joint meeting with the fire station last month. Where the interlock, the agreement we came up with them, and this was never mentioned. And part of that is they do have their own budget too. They have funds, and then they have the city funds. So we have no way of knowing at this point whether or not they think, well, boy, you are worth that. But you know what? We'll take $500 a month out of our budget and pay you half, and the city only has to pay half. That'd save us $500 a month. So all those kinds of discussions. According to Rob, those discussions haven't happened. And so that's why I'm suggesting that we not make a decision on this tonight and ask the fire department, the fire commission, the District 2, to kind of take a look at this and tell us what they think. And Rob can be heavily involved in those discussions, of course. So, and Rob knows this is, I mean, I really value the fire department. I value him. So this is not a reflection on him. This is just me wondering if, well, can we save $500 a month and have Rob be totally happy and excited about it,
So you're simply asking to table the motion.
Yes, I am asking to table the motion.
I'm trying to bring you down your family.
No, but I did think it was incumbent upon me to give my rationale.
I understood it. Yeah, that's what you're asking though, is table the motion.
Table. Thank you. I'm getting to appreciate you more and more. But, and that was a joke, because I've always appreciated you. Okay.
I got emails with the contract.
Leona, can you give us any insight into?
Yeah, so when we were going through the 2023 budget, one of the discussions was whether or not we would be able to afford a full-time chief to do a number of things. And after council discussed, it was not in the budget to have a full-time chief, but there was recognition that with the strategic plan, there were additional items that needed to be addressed, which would take more of the fire chief's time. And then also during the discussion of the interlocal agreement, the fire chief's salary is not split between any of the agencies. It is wholly on the city. And so that's part of the reason why I didn't bring it up, nor did I discuss it with the fire district as far as what the chief should be paid, because again, that pay and that salary is wholly within the city. When I came up with $1,000, I pulled a report from AWC that lists population sizes and salaries and for fire chiefs, and they range from volunteers to fully paid. And based on some of the numbers that we have here, similar sized cities, I mean, there's one that goes $1,700 a month, another $1,500 a month, another $750 a month, another $550 a month. So the average of all of those was about $1,000. So that's how I came up with that number.
Yeah, and that interlocal, am I saying that right? Yeah, agreement, that could have had language in there at the time and when that was negotiated. If this had been one of the topics, is all I'm trying to say. It might have been, well, hey, you cover 50% and we'll cover 50%. That could have been part of that negotiations. And it wasn't. And that's all I'm suggesting is I wish it would have been part of that. And since it wasn't, that's why I'm suggesting tabling this and having them go back and look at it. Because they very well may say, hey, he's worth X amount. And we will or we can't afford to pay any of it. That, in other words, that discussion can be made that way.
Is that a request to put forward an amendment to the interlocal to them?
No, I'm not. I'm simply saying that we should have them take a look at this.
And I'm not sure I'm sorry.
No.
The interlocal that we ultimately came down on, we have a manner of financing there. It's just sort of it's to be, the parties intend to finance this agreement in cash as part of the general funds budgets.
Yeah.
So it's.
Okay,
Well, they're in the
learn to
office.
work things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I think, when the original agreement was established, each department had their own chief. And so they didn't share the chief's costs because they each had their own that they were paying. And so when this agreement was coming down, that could be how it just shook out.
Mr. Martin refused to take any money.
So, yeah, that's fine.
So is the fire
So I
chief
guess
an employee then of the city
Of the city.
and what is the relationship to Fire District 2 with the chief? Then for the agreement.
Dave, I'll have to read the
Okay,
whole
well,
thing.
yeah,
again.
well,
Yeah,
well,
it's a 10-page interlocal that we put together, but yeah, so, I mean, we worked through it with Rob, we worked through it with Grayson, so we did a lot of
Yeah.
finagling to make sure that we covered.
Well, I'm
Each
not in
district.
favor, I'm not in favor of going to another agency on a employee that is a city and discussing that with them too.
Yeah.
To get their approval because it's already been,
Rob Reese's hand.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I have
Bring
Rob?
him in.
Okay,
Okay. Okay, Rob, you should be allowed to talk.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
As far as the fire district, what I was going to do is have them consider a resolution that recognizes who the fire chief is on an annual basis. Not quite sure if that's necessary. Was actually going to run it by the district's legal. Just so we have a recognition that we're in step with the city council and the volunteers, since we do have a signed interlocal that has a process documented. That was part of the problem before, is we didn't have a process documented. We just pretty much adopted what was in place and put it on paper. So I guess at that time the district could opt to institute a stipend for the fire chief as well. I wouldn't ask that as the chief, but I think they have that full range of authority to do that. As far as me not knowing what was going on, that's absolutely true until I got the resolution review from Leona late last week or early last week. Can't remember. My days are blurred this week. So there's a little bit of a surprise. Appreciate the council's willingness to recognize that the fire chief position is a little bit more involved than it has been recognized in the past. So, but Pat, I seen your email. My opinion is I don't think that it has anything to do with city council, what the fire district decides to do. They had ample input on the interlocal agreement, as did all the city council members and the mayor. So, and myself, I didn't I don't know where the ordinance is for the chief's pay in the city. It never had one. I was told when I first started in 2014 that I could not deny the payment unless I wanted to fill out paperwork every month saying that I don't want it, and I do not want to fill out paperwork every month. So
Yeah,
that's the background from the fire chief as far as you know, the stipend.
yeah, and it we don't need to get into a big debate on whether or not they should weigh in on this or not, because I don't really care too much about that. I'm just saying that they probably didn't know. If they had known during the discussions, well, hey, what should we do with the pay? And that issue had been before them, who knows what they would have thought. Maybe they would have said, if we want to make that part of the deal, and boy, we value Rob, as I know they do so much, this is what we're willing to do. So that just never was a part of the discussion. And I appreciate Mr. Moose saying that there is wiggle room on that. So what I was trying to do, the whole reason I brought this up is because one, it was a big item for the consent agenda and I didn't know very much about it, so I had to take it off the consent agenda. And also there's the fact that part of me realizes that, well, if we had gone to Rob and we had said, hey, you're making 100 and now we know you're doing a lot more now. What if we made it 500 a month and 5 times as much? My guess, and maybe I'm wrong, Rob, he would have been so happy that, my gosh, look, they're recognizing me. And then that extra 500, which is times 12, so that's 6,000 a year, could go for something else. So that's all. It just seems like I just wanted to be careful with every penny. And that's not to put down what Rob or anybody else does for the city.
I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of when you say Rob would be happy.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying you weren't.
You've said it twice now, Pat.
Well, you weren't asked, so we don't know what your reaction would be. I just
ask. So over the last 3 to 4 years, I've had discussions with Leona about fire chief pay in Skamania County. I've gathered information, so it's not totally out of the blue. I just wasn't aware that it was a decision that council had already entertained as a part of the budget.
Okay.
So
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me about how many hours per month you put in now?
So if I don't count emails that I answer or phone calls that I get, I pretty much just count meetings. It varies from 8 hours a month all the way up to 20 plus hours. I turn in a time sheet every month. But I don't count if I call Dave and ask him about something, or if Pat stops me in the post office and talks to me about city business. I don't do that. But what I do is I coordinate 3 to 5 meetings a month. I try to do as best I can at giving good input for budgeting for 2 different agencies, make decisions to send people into burning buildings and whatnot. So yeah. My biggest apprehension is not that I'm going to be happy. I'm worried about becoming an email string or being on a bulk mailer or something, which if that happens, it's not going to be good. I'm going to go scorched earth. So I think it's kind of ridiculous that this council's already becoming a hostile work environment. We had that 2 to 3 years ago when we lost a public works director. He almost lost a fire chief over it. So
Rob, I do kind of remember now that Leona is refreshing my memory that we talked about payment and toyed with the idea of bringing on a full-time fire chief to specifically address the items that had come out in the fire strategic plan. And it didn't seem like we were ready at this time with the organization the way it is to necessitate or even rationalize full-time salary.
Yeah, I had
But-
pitched a plan to Leon. Oh, sorry.
Encourage you. But we didn't want to find a way to encourage you or find a way to incentivize you to spend more time and continue to build up the fire department. And $100 a month is an insult for that type of request. So, and I can see where the math came in on the $1,000, and that is a great way to make sure that the fire department progresses in a way so that we can entertain a way to look at a full-time chief that will hopefully coincide with a full-time fire hall that's bigger and better and safer.
Yeah, I had pitched an idea to Leona a couple times, and I think the last time it was in September, about trying to see if there was funding opportunities or funding room in the budget to do a combined fire chief, fire marshal, and an emergency management coordinator. Knowing that each one of those jobs are not full-time individually, but could be headcount increase if they were collective. I mean, we already subcontract out the fire marshal cost to the county building department. We don't have emergency management coordination in the city. We weren't getting good representation from the Skamania County Department of Emergency Management, and there is some at times where the volunteer fire chief is just overwhelmed, especially after the strategic plan put some of our gaps on paper that we've kind of just dealt with. So that's where that was where the idea come from. I don't specifically know what was presented to the council during the budget. I missed that meeting, but yeah, I mean, I'm on the fence about it, like especially if it's going to be a bigger issue. You know, I get $92 a month after the government takes their cut, and I try to spread it around the community to different fundraisers. I bought $60 worth of popcorn that I can't eat from a local girl that needed money for her 4-H horse club, and I used my stipend money for that. So I try to do that. I don't need the money. I've been doing the fire department since 1994, so this is 30 years if my math's right. I'm not very good at math, but yeah, I was surprised. I was gracious. I thank you guys for thinking of that. And I think it's fair, to be honest with you, looking at what the other Skamania County fire chiefs get, which range from $0 to like $1,400 for North Bonneville at one time. And we do 3 to 4 times the amount of activity that North Bonneville does. So
Can I ask a question, Rob? What did the other, and I realize the fire chief does more and holds everything together, and so it's, do the other volunteers, what did they, the volunteers on the fire department, what did they get? I'm just curious.
So they're on a stipend schedule, a call stipend and a training stipend. Oh, Leon, I don't remember the numbers because it's changed.
It's like 8 and 10, and I think I updated that in 2018.
Yeah.
And I looked at it recently. I know I was going to try to reach out to Ray before he went off to just double check and make sure that's and it's not as far off.
You mean $8 or $10?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think it's $8 per training and $10 per call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's paid at the end of the year.
And it's all paid in,
All gets paid in December.
well,
Well, what, if the thing is, if the fire district 2 weighed in, and this isn't a control or a power issue in my mind, if they weighed in, how do we know they wouldn't? They might say, well, we think he's worth $1,200 a month, and because of that, we'll kick in 200 or 300 or 400. In other words, I just thought they were closest to the situation. They knew what he worked. They'd come up with a more accurate number if they kind of had weighed in on it, just like we did the sewer committee. And how do we know they wouldn't say, hey, can we do more and we'll kick in this? So because this is really the first time that it's been really discussed in detail, and I feel uncomfortable doing it, like, we shouldn't be doing a negotiation with Rob, and I don't think any of us are wanting to do that. But that's really the position we're put in, where we're sitting here kind of negotiating what Rob should get. And I feel uncomfortable because that isn't the way that should work. And I just think that's why I felt comfortable. And I think that can be done in such a way we're not giving up power or anything. We're just saying, I think it, but one thing that could happen if we didn't do that is, what if these volunteers that are getting $8 and $10 a month a call, then they find out that, well, our fire chief's getting $1,000 from the city. What are we getting? We're not getting anything. What if there was some resentment there? And that resentment wouldn't be there if they were consulted, is all. You know, so it really, if you wanted to get rid of, and there, I don't think there's internal politics that I know about, but this, just full disclosure at all times, because some of them could say, hey, we did this interlocal agreement, we didn't know, I mean,
3 entities.
yeah, I know, it just seems like, so we're the only entity.
You seem to be confusing the two of them, the fire,
No.
The fires. You want them consulted to see if they agree with the
Fire District
scale.
2 is the only one I want to consult.
Okay.
Fire District 2 consists of elected officials, Pat,
Yeah, I know.
3 of them. So do you want the board consulted or do you want the members consulted?
The board,
Okay.
the board.
Well, they get like $161 a meeting as well. So they're in the same boat that I am. And that you guys are. And I'm not sure what city council gets paid per meeting now, but I know it's a lot more than what the fire chief used to get paid.
Yeah.
So
This is, I mean, the rest of the members are gonna do what they want here, but I think all I'm trying to say is just, we don't know what resentments could happen just because this is sprung on people and they learn about it later. They go, well, we didn't know about that. How come we're only getting this? But if they are included in the discussion, then then they're not gonna feel blindsided, and they will have made the decision themselves, not on themselves, but for Rob. And I don't know any of them that don't think highly of Rob or so, you know, we're not gonna get in a situation where they are not gonna want Rob to get more than $100 a month, because we all want that. The board.
the board doesn't care. They can pay the fire chief whatever they want.
What?
So the board, they're going to entertain a resolution at their next meeting that reconfirms that Rob Ferris is still the fire chief. Since we do have an interlocal that's signed now.
Well,
And I guess I could bring up the fact that
who do you think should be consulted, if anybody?
for
I mean,
what the city decides to pay the fire chief, the city council, there's 5 of you sitting there in that room right now.
Yeah,
That's what we're talking about. Fire District 2 can opt to pay the fire chief whatever they want.
Are we gonna table this or do we need?
I make a motion that we table this.
With what,
Yeah,
because
from-
the council has a issue of tabling stuff so much that it becomes an embarrassment as the only volunteer department head that we keep tabling stuff.
Well, Rob, we're giving.
Tabled a lot of stuff. We've tabled the fire station.
And
We
then,
tabled, how long did it take the interlocal agreement to get done?
Rob,
Oh, Scott, I know what you're saying and I'm gonna listen to you, but it's ridiculous. I don't have anything to lose. I don't care that I'm gonna get demeaned by Pat,
okay.
All right,
That's-
trying to keep,
but I'm not gonna take it either. You know, it's happened a couple times tonight already,
Okay,
with other department heads, so.
Number 20, 24, 425.
Okay, hang on. By rule,
You have
we have a
another
motion on the table. If there
gotta
are no
find a
seconds, then the motion can die due to lack of a second.
okay, so
You made a motion, sir, and so somebody has to either second your motion or your motion dies.
that's fine. Well, we'll see if anybody seconds it, but,
Hearing none.
So is there
Can I
another
get a
motion
motion
to be
from
made?
I would move to approve resolution for 2024-425 revising the fire chief pay
As presented, or do you have modifications?
as presented.
I'll second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, nay, everyone opposed, for the reasons stated.
Thank you. All right, next up, code enforcement discussion. Liana?
So council asked to discuss this back in December. And so we provided the process for how we currently respond to nuisance complaints and code enforcement issues. And so where we end up hitting a roadblock is when the voluntary correction stalls. And the next step that we have is to take it to court to either start leaning fines or get access to the property to mitigate the issue, and then move forward with billing the property owner for that, for correcting the issue. So in the memo, there's in essence 3 different options. One is to stay the course, do what we can to have people comply. The second one is to use our current codes and start pursuing litigation. The third option is a complete overhaul of our entire system as far as what our code enforcement practices are, including doing community engagement on what the community would like to see for code enforcement and what their expectations are. And so that would take about 6 to 12 months. Part of the challenge is the bang for the buck.
Mr. Mayor, I was asked to provide to staff as well some of the highlights of code enforcement problem for our community, which ties into the financial situation. So the way our system is set up, and this is true for the county as well, which is why the county doesn't do this as often as they can, because it becomes very expensive and time consuming for their own particular staff. In our case, if somebody comes to you, files a nuisance or provides you with a nuisance complaint, it would take staff then to go out, verify that, take photos, create the file so that it can be presented to the offender or the subject property owner. They can then enter into the voluntary agreement that we've negotiated. However, there's no teeth to that. Simply, if they don't continue to provide or do what they're supposed to do, that abatement then goes away. You're back to filing in court, and you're in district court with Judge Rainier. So therefore, you have to be a licensed attorney to appear on behalf of the city. We currently contract with the county for that work. So somebody from Adam's office, Mr. Kick's office, that would do that, but they do charge us. And so you're talking attorney time. Then after 60 days, if the judge hasn't ruled, the offending party can appeal that decision. Again, now you're imposing fines. And then if you're going to seek access to the property to clean it up yourself, you got to identify who's going to do it, what time you're going to do it. You have to have police or sheriffs on standby for breaches of the peace. And then you got to pay for the cost to remediate. And now all you've done is created a big bill that you ultimately can lien against the property. And whenever the property is sold, you could then arguably collect any funds. So it is a bang for the buck issue. And that's why I provided Anders with that documentation. And he asked me, he says, what do you think of dollar wise? And I said, there's no way to tell that. But I did speak with Mr. Kick's office, and they said on occasion they spent way too many hours, junk car issues, cleaning up the property, fixing up property. They still have one that's been pending for 1.5 years. So it's up to council. I'm just providing the data in the background for that.
So no matter what we do, we would run into that, correct?
Yes.
So really, we could change the rules for whatever, and we're still that's always gonna be.
You're gonna have due process no matter what.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what we do. it's the decision of whether or not we ever want to enforce. It's always going to come down to that.
The level of enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always do the voluntary agreement. If it works, that's fabulous. It's just that when the voluntary agreement fails or the offending party fails to comply, so then you're back to square one.
So no matter what we did, right now you can do the voluntary agreement. And if
That's
we
enough.
changed it, then there'd be the voluntary, I mean, that could still be.
No, that's still in there.
I
That's
don't
in our code.
understand how, if we make any changes, how it solves the problem, which is it's very expensive to go after these people. So that's what I'm trying to say is what are we trying to accomplish here to make it easier to go after them? And then that's going to be difficult no matter what we do.
It's the level of enforcement that council wants to see or the city wants to impose on, citizens of the city they're offending.
I guess the question is, so Dave and Pat, you're the ones that brought this
No, I didn't. bring
to
it.
discussion.
I did.
Dave did,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I did.
And so,
My issue with this is, are we gonna blow smoke up somebody's skirt just because we've got this ordinance in place? Okay, quite frankly, either we're gonna enforce the ordinance or we're gonna get rid of the ordinance. There's no reason to have it both, because if we don't enforce, people continue to come in and complain, saying, how come you haven't done this? How come, Anders, how come you haven't done this? How come, and I mean, I've seen it. And it's ridiculous for him to have to go through all this. So either we have the nuisance ordinance or we don't. If we have the nuisance ordinance, we enforce it like Robert is talking about. And if it comes to leaning on the property, then we put a lien on the property. But either have the teeth for the ordinance or get rid of the ordinance.
I would agree. If it's not worth enforcing, why have it?
Exactly. So I guess that's where I'm at with this, because it's not worth Anders' time to deal with all of the issues of going out and seeing what's going on or anything else. He's got a lot of other
well,
things in the fire.
there may be a way to tie in. So to keep the ordinance, but maybe add some things to where you can't do certain things until the code violation is taken care of. So it's kind of a middle ground to hopefully address some of the issues, but it all takes time and patience. I mean, even if we were to go to court, they still want to see that you're working with the property owner and you're not being,
Yeah, Judge Rainier's not gonna give you immediate rulings. He's gonna always ask you to go with another step.
right,
So-
right.
Or I wouldn't recommend removing any ordinance, because the problem is if you remove it and then you get that one catastrophic moment that you don't have it, you're gonna wish you had it. The idea of enforcing or not enforcing is just like 55 in the speedway. It's there, but does it get enforced all the time? So as counsel, I would recommend, legal counsel, I'd recommend you keep the ordinance, but make a decision on maybe on the threshold that you want to enforce that. But that would be a council decision.
My issue with this whole thing is why, as a neighbor, if City Hall was to come to me and say, I've got a nuisance ordinance violation, I need you to fix this. Why, as a neighbor, why wouldn't I try to fix that for my neighbor so that they don't have to worry about that? That's one issue. I mean, why can't we all just get along?
Tell me about it.
I think I know what.
Makes sense.
I think I know what you're saying, because look at it this way, because there's the carrot and the stick. Okay, and if the stick's not there, then people soon figure that out, and the stick's not there. So then the carrot won't work, because let's say you have a really offending neighbor and you'll help them, you'll clean it all up for them, in fact, and get volunteers and do it. But the neighbor's never going to agree to that because there's no stick. So I think really that's a valid
fine.
That's in our ordinance right now that you can be fined. That's part of the enforcement act.
And
So
what
that-
happens if they don't pay?
Again, that's where you can file a lien against the property.
Right. Then if they
But in
sell
order
the
to
property-
fine, don't we have to take it to court?
Yes, you have to have a judicial
Yeah.
order that's not been paid. So you got to get a money judgment in place that's enforceable after 30 days. And the appeals were, I recall, I trying so hard not to do this, but it was like the second year I was on council, 2012, we had an issue on Iman Loop. And it took us a year and a half to get that cleaned up. And I think we paid Ken a lot of money to assist in doing that. But that was a large offending property, no assistance from the property owner. And it wasn't until I think one of the property owners moved that we actually got movement on cleaning up the issue. So it does work. It's just in that rare circumstance that you can get it to work.
Maybe you know, like a which codes are worth enforcing in which ways?
That one came down to safety thing or?
Yeah, it was a safety
It was
hazard.
like became more and more,
Safety.
But
more and more
Lucy
egregious.
Yeah.
has a good point is maybe is, and I understand staff not wanting to spend time on, hey, a quick question I have legally is, let's say you win, or an egregious case because the carrot doesn't work but the stick is there. And, you know, are they liable for attorney damages and stuff, or is that up to the judge, or, I mean, the fees or the cost, if they lose the property?
My computer just died. I had the SMC app. I don't remember if we have a fee provision in there. I will look. I'll report back on that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we do, but it's,
Yeah.
because, you know, you have two separate statutes. You have the nuisance statute under chapter 8, and we also have the junk car abandoned vehicle statute, which are two separate statutes. So, and everything is defined as a nuisance, so you can put it on there, but there is not a private right of action under our code right now. Meaning individual can't bring that claim through our code, just like in the county, you can't bring it on your own.
Right. I can't bring it against my neighbor.
Correct.
I can't say, I'm gonna take this.
You
guy
can't
to
use
court
our
over
code.
Your code.
Okay,
do
is
that.
there a provision for that? I mean, is
Well,
there?
there's a separate state law that will allow you to do that. That it's just like enforcing your CCNRs if you haven't recorded in your neighborhood. Everybody who owns property there has the right to enforce the CCNRs. You don't have to go to an HOA or a third party to do it, but that's a separate claim. There is a private nuisance statute in the RCWs.
Okay,
And it is
Okay.
very strong.
It is.
so that is in existence right now. If neighbors got really upset with somebody and they
do it
couldn't get them,
themselves.
they could do it themselves, but.
And it's typically they don't want to.
But you can't go onto private property.
No, well, you have to, yeah.
Well, no, they have to get the judge.
They gotta get the judge order for.
And most of the time they would want the city to do that.
But Lucy had an interesting point, which, and tell me if I'm wrong, Lucy, you're saying, well, we should only have the statutes there that we are willing to, in other words, go through and say, get rid of this, get rid of this.
Well, you could say this one maybe is not worth enforcing with the stick. You could still have the carrot.
Yeah, you could, but you could leave the statute there as you suggest, but then make a decision as a council, but then the
Which
property
one's worth
owners
taking
know
to
that.
court?
That
Yeah.
they know
Yeah,
that.
you have that right now.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
still
already,
in place.
that's place, yeah, where we can say, no, that's not, or we need to do something about this. This has to have, it's a bigger issue.
What, and I just have one question, then I'll be quiet on this issue. What if the staff said, do you know the cases better than anybody? Because you got your open cases. What if you had said, these are the most, what if there were a staff recommendation? What are the most egregious cases that if you had the time, I mean, what does the staff think? Which cases? I mean, we want to enforce these cases and we know it'll be expensive if they say, Mr. Cox is right. We got to do something some of the time. Is there a threshold where the staff would say, okay, these most egregious cases, fine, we'll just bite the bullet and we'll put some teeth into them. Otherwise, they're all meaningless.
That's pretty much been this.
Right, I think that's the same
So
that
far.
we do now.
But have there been any case? No.
Yeah, like I said, we've done one on Island Loop. I know we
Been a
did
couple
one on
years
there's like been 4 since I only moved here in 2008, so.
All I'm suggesting is there a way to have better code enforcement with what Mr. Cox suggests? It would be a little harder on the most egregious cases to where, you know, because there are some egregious cases out there now. So maybe it's just, I hear you suggesting we should bite the bullet on that.
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to postpone this.
Okay.
To, because it says 12 months to revise. And I think,
That's a full blown
Changing the
community
whole thing.
engagement. How do you want
right,
to, that's, yeah. that's
and
a full
again, if
blown
we're talking
engagement.
about
Yeah.
having staff come in with the more grievous ones, then we need to get that listed out.
But maybe
Well,
that,
we would like guidance as far as what, yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Exactly.
Just an eyesore or?
As we talk about things, we're trying to narrow it down so we
Yes.
can take options off the table.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think we heard the full change the ordinance is not on the table.
No.
And I think that we heard stay the course is not on the table.
Correct.
But to have more enforcement. Did I hear that that should be a city council decision every month about which of those to enforce, or what am I hearing to be on?
And this is totally one out of the five of us, but in my mind, it would be one where we would take staff recommendation, like whether that's every month or every 6 months or what have you. Hey, this is this is an issue that's big enough. We need to look at this.
Well, and as,
You know what I'm saying?
as it's laid out in the memo here, that it's a pretty blanket, an umbrella term, nuisance.
Sure.
'Cause
Oh, yeah,
it's
we
not
look at
necessarily a
nuisance,
nuisance,
anything,
but
yeah.
that, as I recall, the one time that we did lean in, and it was at staff level at some point where finally it's like, this isn't working.
Right.
This is the part where we need to spend real money,
Yeah.
and we need to promote that, and then
And then they
that's.
bring that to council. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is maybe I don't need a list of every nuisance.
No,
But
no.
the staff goes, you
But
know
the
what,
ones that need
this
to be-
needs to
right,
be pushed.
right.
And the staff can come to us as a council and say, this one has come up and we've done all we can do on our side. We are getting no movement and it's a major issue. And then we present that to council. I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even saying that's not the way it works. Maybe we just
Right,
haven't
right,
come up,
but-
but I'm saying that's what I would like to see.
Well, and as staff, I would like council direction or concurrence before we go spending a lot of effort
Absolutely.
and time and resources.
Sure.
Does that help, Ben?
Yeah, maybe potential litigation, executive session?
You could discuss them on a, chart, just like you're doing on your project, capital project, say, hey, we've got 10 on the list right here. Here's what they are. They share them. Council decides, hey, we want to pursue number 2, then we would, direct legal counsel to either have an executive session to discuss those costs, what it's going to be. You can do it that way. But if council has some sort of list that they can work off quarterly, 6 months, something like that, then they can make that direction specifically back to staff.
can I ask a question on the executive session part of it? Would it just be you discussing the cost or the issue? Because in other words, the reason I would think the whole thing would be an executive session, because you wouldn't want necessarily the property owner to know if you're not going after him. So the whole issue would be an executive session. Otherwise, they'd know your legal strategy. And they wouldn't clean it up. If you decided this isn't worth the cost, then those people would know you're never coming after them. And I'd want to, if I were them, I'd.
Well, you're always going to approach first with the voluntary agreement.
Oh, of course.
So they're already on notice, the
Okay,
discussion
got
has
it.
already happened, the communication is already open. It's just whether or not the reception of that voluntary agreement is well received or poorly received.
But actually, what he's saying, maybe if we're going to be discussing a specific, like,
Oh,
I'm
get there.
talking about, my discussion is about Ben and his yard.
Yeah.
That's on the agenda. Ben's yard is something we're gonna be talking about. Do we want to list those things, or would that be an executive session? We talk about those specific.
You've already come into City Hall and you've filled out the nuisance complaint, and there's a public record. So.
Okay, all
whether
right,
you
so I
put it
guess
on the
it's
agenda
already
here,
out
that-
there. It's
That
already out there.
discussion is already happening.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Well, we
Fair
can figure out what would fall under the executive session.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
That's
I
all.
was
That's
just trying to.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
okay,
Yeah, sorry.
okay.
Okay.
So, anyway.
All right, so, a little bit of
Direction.
housekeeping. Are we good on direction?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been suggested there might be a small time recess to attend to some, whatever.
Old man stuff.
So then we'll
That's what
come,
we're talking
somebody's gotta go use a body. But then when we come back, we approve that we would not go past 9 o'clock. So
Okay,
unless, of course, it comes to general consensus if there's not much left, but
How far is the courthouse cross on that place?
Not
it's
on
not.
okay, well, that'll save some time.
Park plan review.
the park plan review, but the park plaza is not on the
Okay, just the park plan.
park plan.
All right, so we're gonna take a quick recess. Is that what you're saying?
Yep,
Okay.
quick recess.
All right.
So is the plan part of the park thing? Is the project listed in there? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a drive with my Jeep. 15.
Didn't you send Kara flowers?
Oh, flowers, clothing, dinner.
Clothing.
Yeah, always gotta buy her something fun. And Bonnie is just great, because she loves everything in it. So I could usually go in and go.
Yeah.
All right, new jacket,
Yeah.
scarves.
What's that? You killed both of those tonight?
Yeah, Robert.
No wonder.
Am I gonna have to answer it to you if I get a legal letter from you?
No, because if it's the Pink Flamingos, that means it's the high school and they're doing their fundraiser and you got all the building coming. Rebar already stuck. It's already stuck in your
They
yard.
already drafted me.
And you have your volunteer compliance. You pay and you get somebody else flocked.
I paid real quick just to get those things out of my yard.
It's the best way to get your yard aerated.
Right?
Then they all fall over. That's the fun part. And you got dead
Or the
pink
wind.
flamingos all over the place. Yeah.
Don't get your water line.
Although I haven't seen them do that in Mars.
I haven't seen, yeah, and they kind of went through Angel Heights and it was bouncing.
Oh, yeah. I think-
Leonard Damian nailed me, you know.
That was either, Hayden senior year or Jack Wood senior year when it was all the bigger.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go to coffee or what?
Dude, I
Scared
don't
of
have
me?
time for coffee.
Scared?
I'm not scared of you, but I got a
You're
living
the
to
one,
make.
you're the one who petitioned me. Can't wait to come out.
I didn't petition you. You sent me emails to my Gmail. account.
Weeks ago.
I never said I'd have coffee with you.
Yes, you did. You said it right here, and you looked at me, you said, I can't wait to have a chin wag.
Oh, I don't know. What?
And
What?
I said, I can't
What?
wait.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, now. You got all the indices.
Yes, I did. I'm reminded of that on a regular basis.
So what are you telling me? I'm not gonna go and come in?
What's the topic? I gotta find time in my schedule, which is crazy. I'm either in meetings or doing my realtor.
Fishing or
Thank you. That's fun for you guys.
I have skydiving. That was
It's
fun.
at my house. Yeah, so I'm on.
I don't fish. Never forgave my house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, Mary.
Look your.
Depositions are different. Depositions are a different day.
Break, can I get your autograph for those?
And yeah, I didn't see anything. We don't have any citywide
Oh,
opioid
I
clinics, right?
Yeah. Citywide what?
You don't have any.
Opioid.
No, that's.
They haven't moved. Yeah, he's doing it residents.
Yeah, and I'm making money. To generate paper mailers.
3 more years when he's done with residents. Thinking he wants to set up a practice here.
Oh, yeah, so there's no.
You know what, we were at our other house for 20-something years. Moving side. We love our house. I'm only two ways. Then either wife and kids take me down the hill to Rock Creek, senior place and say,
Yeah.
here's your yard.
Yeah.
Or the white van picks me up.
Yeah.
Takes me to the-
Do you want a chocolate?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go grab one.
Yeah.
What exactly?
Okay, yeah.
We were talking maybe
So
getting a
as part
second
of the audit
place.
that was emailed to you for Department of Retirement Systems, we weren't asking council members to fill this out, and the reason why we weren't is because you don't, council members don't qualify for retirement, you don't make enough to have
Now
hours.
it's slush.
So
Okay.
Right now, it's kind of like. Look for that.
Could use it like a savings account, but why
Yeah.
would you just use a savings account? So,
So basically, it's,
But you gotta be wondering what the next thing's gonna be. It's gonna
if
be.
you want to, but
It's
but
gonna
really you can't, you're not getting any matching
Yeah.
funds for, because it doesn't qualify for retirement or pension. So, yeah.
Oh. Dave, you going to the Legion dinner Saturday night? Dave, you going to the Legion dinner Saturday night? You're not a member of the Legion down there? Monty gets me every year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause it seems to me that it's the area.
That's my guy in the grocery. Just reminded me.
Yeah.
My brother, like,
He's bigger than me, big beard. Reddish as me, big beard.
Okay.
He's got red.
Well, you got about 50.
No. So Chris's hair, my brother, his hair is.
All right. Let's settle.
Right now. Oh, did you, was calling back to order?
Hey, hold on, Lucy.
Scott, I'm trying to get some trivia. You know, until, you know, things that come up here maybe would be next month. I haven't found anything yet.
Your trivia senses aren't tingling?
Huh?
Your trivia senses aren't tingling?
You know, just tired of always coming in second place. You're the perpetual first loser.
Like shift everyone down. I don't know.
All right. Let's get this going. Everybody can settle. Please.
See?
All right, Ben.
Okay, last time we had the presentation about the parks plan as it was entering its final drafting stages. You've now received that final draft. Give you an idea of what the process is from here. We'll do our SEPA threshold determination, publish that and search for public comments on the threshold determination of the State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA. We'll also be doing some direct outreach to the property owners who are adjacent to the capital projects that are identified here, so there are no surprises involved if you were to approve this and then the city moves to the next phase for implementing the capital projects. So that'll all be completed by the time you meet next, when we will ask for an approval of a final Parks, Recreation, and Open Space plan. There haven't been many changes to what was presented to you before. I was able to talk with all of you about your impressions of the project goals and the 6 capital projects that were identified, including and I included a discussion of the planning projects that were identified, the non-capital projects that were identified. So hoping that this is familiar for you as you go through it, presented a month in advance so that, again, you'll have ample time to review and ready it for approval at the next meeting. I am available to talk to any of you between now and then. Also, if there are any specific changes that you see should be made to the document, if you think that it doesn't reflect the best interests of the city, or it doesn't set up a framework for how we're going to provide, maintain, create parks, recreation, and open space for the city for the next 20 years or longer.
And again, Ben, thank you for doing all this, because I was able to sit in on a couple of those meetings, and the thing I really appreciated was the collaboration between different entities that brought us all together at the same table to discuss all these issues. So Thank you for doing that.
At the last meeting too, Pat, you had asked me to reach out to our coalition members to gauge their support or interest in the Park Plaza project specifically. I was able to do that with all representatives of all those coalition members. One of them, I asked two questions. I asked the same questions to all of you as council members. On a yes/no basis, should something be done, something different occur at the courthouse lawn, courthouse plaza? And then a separate question of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you support the existing design there? So 2 of the coalition members chose to remain neutral. One was a decision by that member to be neutral. One took it to the board, and the board chose not to make any comment on that, on either topic. And then 2 were comfortable stating for themselves that yes, they support something changing at the courthouse plaza. And then on that scale of 1 to 10 for support the existing design, there was a 6 and a 7 from those 2 that were willing to comment.
Now, were these entities you said, or representatives from entities?
Right, those coalition members that were part of the parks plan.
But they were entities. Can you tell me who the entities were? I'm not there, yeah, so.
Yeah.
I mean, so the entities like
The coalition we put together for the parks plan were all the public agencies that are providing some degree of recreation in our community already. So the county, the school district, the pool district, and the port are all doing great things for recreation. We wanted to bring them in this coalition to say, we're not just planning for Walnut Park. We're not just planning for Gropper Loop Park or Gateway Park. We're planning on behalf of all of us to enable the improvement of parks and recreation. And so all those agencies were part of this effort.
But so the 2 entities that said they were neutral, who were they? I'm just curious.
The pool district and the port.
And so then it'd be the county, and the gave it the 6 and the 7 would be the county.
The individuals.
Oh, the individual representatives for the county. So that, but they representatives from the county and the school. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
I'm good. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or address anything, even if it is approaching.
I mean, this is one where I might come in and talk to you and then be happy, but just feel some things out, but yeah.
Yeah, and it was quite a lengthy report. So yeah, having that month to digest it, because there's a lot there. It was,
Yeah.
I think, over 204 pages, if I got it right. So yeah.
That's great.
I mean,
Good report.
Is that online?
yeah.
It's in the
that's right.
council packet. And also, if you go to the council packet online through the meetings and agendas, you can get the hyperlinks, and so you can just see those.
All right, Liana?
The Cascade Avenue project, we're getting close to having that contract, and so here's the initial draft that they have. In a couple of conversations that I've had with them, they talk about whether or not to include rate increase language into the contract. And since we haven't approved the rate increases yet, they may just include it in the contract. And I don't know what those requirements would be, but it ultimately would be making sure that whatever our rates are, we could pay back the loan. It's a 1.38% interest for a 20-year term, and a grant of $335,000. The project is to upsize a sewer line that is deficient for current uses, let alone any expansion that occurs at the port properties. And then while that trench will be open, adjacent to that line is an AC water line, which is asbestos concrete, and it is brittle. And so the concern, a couple of concerns. One is during construction, it will break because of the condition and the closeness to the trench. The other one is to for cost savings, only one mobilization, just a wider trench instead of, again, digging and coming back and less, disruption if you're doing the project all at the same time. And so it's a water and sewer project. The water line is, it's from, they both more or less start at, Russell Avenue. And they go, the sewer line goes roughly to the barn. And then the water line would go all the way down to the boat launch, to replace that entire section. And it would only replace, we're keeping it in the south lane, so it's only one lane that would need to be repaved versus doing the entire width of the road.
And again, the 1.9 million is included in the sewer rate schedule as we have
Sewer,
right now.
water and sewer, so it's
Yeah.
split, we roughly threw in $1 million in water and $1 million
Yeah,
in sewer.
yeah.
Okay.
And we'll have that discussion at our retreat.
When you say roughly, I suppose those, when that is done, then it'd be apportioned out. I mean, in other words, is that guesswork? In other words, it's gonna be what it is, and then do you just do 50-50? You have to assign something to them because it's arbitrary, so you assign 50% to sewer and 50% to water? Or is it that when it's done, you're gonna be able to more accurately determine, hey, this is how much was water, this is how much is sewer, and you just apportion it?
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so at the next meeting, the goal is to have the design contract, ready.
Okay, I'd move to authorize the mayor to sign the Public Works Board loan contract PC 24-96-103-015 for a total of $2,238,000 with $1,902,300 in loan funding at an interest rate of 1.38% for a 20-year term, and a grant of $335,700 for the Cascade Avenue Utility Upgrades Project.
Second. First and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Liana?
Okay, so safe streets and roads for all. The Regional Transportation Council submitted an application for a grant to create a safety action plan, and we received it. And so it would create a safety action plan for both Klickitat and Skamania counties. And the request is to have, so there's $300,000 grant, and then I believe it's $75,000 that they need as far as match funds. The Regional Transportation Council will put forward some of the funds, and then they're asking for some funds from the city and from the county. I don't know, or from the cities and the counties in the region. I don't know if Skamania County is interested in moving forward with it. What this would do also is it then sets you up to be able to apply for state and federal funding for projects that would fall under or within this plan. The part of the nuance of it, though, is it's reactive, it's not proactive. So I know we've recently received an email and some concerns about SR 14 through downtown and 2nd Street. And I hate to say this, and it's part of the challenge with all these fundings is because nothing's happened, they won't give us funding. However, with this plan, if there has been, say, a pedestrian hit in an urban area along SR 14 within this region, we could leverage that to then say, we're trying to prevent this here because it's already happened, and use that for funding for any projects that would fall under that. So it's ultimately to get grants to help us improve the safety in our city.
Can I ask a question? I think this could be a really good thing because one of the things I hesitate to, and we may not because of time at our next meeting, I've been getting a lot of about pedestrian traffic, and it's a big deal. We all saw that one email, and I've been hearing it from other people too. And even I mean, there's even some driving issues involved. I mean, the poor drivers sometimes have trouble seeing the people. So it is a problem for the drivers and without doing more research, I didn't bring up enforcement tonight. I didn't ask Mr. Wyckoff about enforcement of some of the pedestrian laws that aren't being enforced, because I thought that would be premature. But in other words, this is a big concern. There is, but batches of this money. Anyway, that's all I'll say. But there is probably a lot of simple fixes that might take 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000 to where this could be helpful. But simple fixes compared to major fixes. So.
And what also helps with success too is the regional nature of it. So if we're having an issue, White Salmon's having an issue, Binion's having an issue, and Goldendale, we can all have the same project and apply for that project as a whole for the region, and be more successful in leveraging that.
Or maybe even, and again, I'm trying to think of where it would be, but maybe some tribal opportunities there as well.
And when you say tribal opportunities, what do you mean?
Well, like at in-lieu sites,
Oh, okay.
railroad crossings.
Okay,
things like that.
No, I know what
Yeah.
you mean.
For safety.
Safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mhm.
So which tees up the big question.
Right, how much? So they don't know yet. They were throwing out between $1,000 and $20,000. Their initial just throwing at it was $20,000 to each county and then $1,000 to each city, which would get the 45,000 that they're short. And so, or the 45,000 that they're looking for. And some of that can also be in staff time. That's put towards match, right? But again, Skamania County didn't seem all that interested, so I don't know if I did say that I feel like the city could pay more than 1,000. I don't know what that range looks like though. So
this is just to give you direction to where, and then we decide later, because this is matching, so then we have to make a commitment for X amount.
it'll probably come through a contract. Yes. We'll get a contract with Regional Transportation Council or a budget amendment. Something will come to council reflecting.
Informational to see if this is something where, as a council, would be interested in you pursuing.
Yes. And is there any sort of dollar range or cap or limit that council has?
Well, I would just like to see what they come up with.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss at that time.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
Or if we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so does that work? Because the question I had is, well, like when we have a discussion about, well, how could we make our sidewalks safer? Then we don't have any ideas how much that would cost, but if we had that idea and had that discussion, we might think, well, hey, if we can get a matching, we should really do this. It costs 30,000 if we could get a matching grant for half, so let's put in 15. In other words, maybe that discussion on it, if it's even a problem, but I bet there'd be consensus there is, by discussing that, would it help us arrive at some numbers, is what I'm wondering. I don't know. But it sounds like you'll come back with more information anyway, but.
I can reach out to them and see where they're at.
Well, we may have ideas such as, having flashing lighting
Yeah.
at our crosswalks and those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah,
Applying
And-
to our budget authority for negotiation.
Yeah.
Right,
We're
that-
willing to pay
yeah.
for it. If it's more than this, bring it back to us.
Because, and the traffic study years ago did talk about two of the intersections. Of course, not flashing lights, but they were recommending.
And in talking with the insurance company with regards to where to put those flashing lights, the recommendation is to have a study, so you don't just throw in a flashing light, because then
Yeah.
it's like, well, why'd you put one there and not there? It's like, you need to have the justification behind doing things, and this helps with getting that justification.
Good.
Yeah, I was thinking about the safety issue and like how could you get through traffic to go on First Street instead of Second, especially coming from the east?
Well, and I know
That's an issue.
that's
So that's
why
what you need a study for.
When they got studied, there is information on
we
that.
have roundabout.
It's been thought.
Yeah.
What?
It's been discussed for years.
Yeah. And I think the traffic study did get into that, and there's thresholds for numbers and stuff, and we're nowhere near the numbers for doing but that's different, but
Yeah,
you brought it up.
this is in the downtown plan, has metrics on, how much drive-by traffic is appropriate to maintain businesses. And we're at about half of, what would be appropriate if we were to divide the traffic between the streets.
Like go
And
one
so
way up,
businesses
one way
on-
each way.
Yeah.
They would
it's-
get
yeah,
hurt.
it's kind of
Well,
fun.
anyway.
All right, cool.
So any limit, 5,000, 10,000 guidelines?
Well, if it's matching, you see, we may want to have a higher amount if it were, in other words, if we determine, if we look at this issue of
This-
sidewalk and we really have a discussion of that. But we may, I mean, if we determine, yes, we definitely have a problem and all the data shows that, and we want to fix that. Well, and it's legitimate and we can justify it to the public. Well, we may want the full amount, the
Right.
20, because that'd be 20.
But that's not, no,
We're
that's
asking
not,
them
Okay, so
how
this
much
is what I'm
traffic
missing
they
here.
have.
yeah,
So when you say a limit, explain more to me.
so
This is what we are having to match.
they're trying to ask, how should they split up the match for the grant that they got? And so if they don't, so right now, the full plan that they want to do for all cities and all counties, for Squeakatack and Skamania County, it's about $375,000. I think it should be in the memo, maybe. And so they're looking for that $70,000 or $75,000 would be the match.
So how
And they
much
need to
money
know
each
how
of
much we
those
need to
entities?
split out that. They said that they will pay $30,000 to $35,000 and they need $40,000 to $45,000 between the cities and counties. So how are the cities and counties going to then negotiate what that split should be between those
So she's asking for
agencies
Negotiation from
to
saying.
get the plan?
So we
would
may
pay up.
provide a $10,000 match between staff time and dollars, and that will be our portion of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Salmon may come up with another $10,000.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Those are the amounts
Right,
that you're talking
yes,
about.
that's what I'm asking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I would say-
how high or how, right, yeah,
Yeah.
how,
And I would say at this point, let's see what you come back with.
Okay.
And then we can
Alright.
react to that.
Yeah, okay, and that doesn't hurt us by
That
waiting,
doesn't hurt
right?
us.
Okay, is that true? I mean,
I don't know, I'll give a
What
call.
would be different?
Right,
Well,
What's that?
What do
yeah.
you think would be different? The RTC already gave us what their proposal
This is where I
was.
got confused.
And they say, we need you all to determine how you're gonna help pay for this. And so we're.
Well, we're gonna pay for it with match and dollars, correct?
Right, and so I think what we're asking is what's the upper limit of what
And
you
what would
how
we
much
be
is this worth
comfortable-
to you?
Well-
Would we be comfortable with matching, with putting in $20,000 from the city out of the 45 that needs to be done for the whole thing? If the county does nothing,
Can we use tourism funds for this?
Let,
ARPA funds?
Streets, no, ARPA didn't no, seriously, ARPA didn't cover streets,
Okay.
cover water and sewer, but no streets.
okay,
So,
I have a question. Okay, you're just going in and negotiating and wanting to know the dollar limit. I'm curious and what amount you want. If a staff recommendation, I'm curious what that would be, because you're the one going in and negotiating. So what do you think it should be? Because
well.
you know more
that's-
than I do on it, so.
It all depends on who is in.
yeah, it absolutely. If the
Yeah.
So if
counties
the
aren't-
county pulls out, they may de-scope the project and so less match will be needed. It just. It's
I
hard.
would-
Like,
I
it's
would
hard
say
to answer. I mean,
10,000.
Okay.
That's what I would say, 10,000. That's what I would feel comfortable with. I think the budget can handle that between staff time and what we have in the budget. That's what I suggest.
Are you fair? That's.
What do you think? What
I
do you
won't
think,
go in with
Lucy?
that with them, but yes.
No, but
No, they'll just want the YouTube.
Mediating here, that's your authority.
I'm curious what you think, Lucy. Like,
Mhm.
I would agree with Dave on 10,000.
Mhm.
that's fine.
Thank you. Sticking with streets, can I move on to the next? Okay. So, Complete Streets is, another grant opportunity, and this one, again, was discussed at, their Regional Transportation Council meeting. But they came out with basically a shovel-ready project, opportunity. And the city's not gonna be going after this year for a couple of reasons. One, we got plenty of other projects to work on, but the other one is we don't have a complete streets ordinance. And so part of the question is this something that council would be open to? And what complete streets is it's ensuring that you have a policy to where your streets encompass all modes of transportation. So walking, biking, driving, however.
Which is what we should be doing.
My answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just, it hasn't been done before and I just wanted to.
And again, grants originally came from nonprofits to nonprofits. And where government has kind of moved around to where now governments is relying on grants, smaller grant governmental agencies. And it's not free money. It is money that we have all paid into. But we are able to utilize that money to leverage against the taxes that we have already paid in other sources so that we can possibly do some of the projects that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And so nothing is free with the government, but again.
TRB is a lot easier to work with than some of the others.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. So anyway, I just throw that out there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Just
you.
looking
So-
for the mark. Okay.
You're looking for a consensus, yes, please.
I already got
move
that.
forward.
Yep,
Move
thank
forward,
you.
please.
Okay.
Okay,
Workshop topics.
all right, it's 4th and 5. 4th and 5, people. Or,
On the ball, beast.
I mean, last year we kind of hit off on some of them already, and then we already just did a deep dive on rates, so I wasn't gonna do the rate AWC.
right.
Webinar, so.
Do we have any that we're with that, do we have any that we need, that council needs to have every?
So the question was,
year
are we
or-
gonna Open Public Meetings Act, but I think, Pat, you did that, and Dave, did you do that recently too?
Can we
Every
maybe
4 years.
email you some ideas?
Okay.
Would that be awesome?
Yes.
That way then,
Mhm. Yeah,
we're getting close to 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sorry.
but I did hear to talk about,
I'm excited to be back tonight.
the
Apologize.
sewer stuff. Was that at the next meeting?
Okay, I'm confused.
Um,
You switched gears.
This
a
is
little
for the
bit.
workshops.
for
Pat.
workshops. And so
okay,
I did,
okay, I get
so I
it, I
did
get
hear a workshop topic on the
Right.
sewer
Yeah.
ordinance
Right.
for connections. And it was on just the whole thing in general.
Drilling down on the thing.
Okay.
She's
Okay,
talking about
okay.
filling those dates
Okay,
for workshops.
do we want that for the
Okay. Oh,
next
yeah.
one?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't-
Oh, so she thought, not the
I'm
retreat.
saying, I would. I want to get.
Make it
no,
to the
I don't know
February
if you can
second
make
meeting?
that. I'm sorry, I
Just the
was training.
workshops.
Yeah.
I thought that was a me question. I'm like, yeah.
Next week. Okay, and then the next question is rescheduling the March workshop.
I'm available 18th and 25th.
Okay,
I'm available on both those dates.
I am also.
So my,
That was easy.
I didn't even count
Which
right.
one are
And
you
then- and then-
available
well,
for, Liana?
I 18th, what you got?
so,
18th looks good. Have a dot on the 25th. It is nothing to worry about. All right, yeah,
Okay,
I'm available both of those days.
and did I hear you say that you were still accepting things for the ideas for the workshop? Okay, because there was a deadline that.
well, I didn't get anything and I figured I'd talk to everyone at the council meeting anyway,
Okay,
so,
okay. Yeah. No, I just,
You got the survey.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, so for the meeting on the 18th, maybe it's a follow-up from the. So is there anything, how about we do the 25th? Because I don't have anything right now for the,
Those are Mondays.
okay, we're talking, so,
yeah.
March
I know.
25th.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it, okay.
March 25th, Ben won't be here, so whatever we talk about, we'll
That's
Well,
the
we'll
workshop.
cover
not
all,
be able to be planning.
we'll cover all Ben's topics on that work. No, sorry.
Perfect.
Well, because one of the things we're talking about was refining the sewer ordinance.
Right, and so that one's gonna be,
Let me do this thing.
next week,
Yeah, okay.
right? And so then, we might be able to follow up from the
I'm getting it.
retreat
I'm just trying to get out of here, man.
on the 18th with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you looking for 3 meetings during the month of March?
Yeah, isn't that fun?
You know, you gotta get approval because our,
No, it's just.
you
we
can only get paid for
You
two.
get paid for
You
two.
only get paid for two. but
As
you
long as they know they're
can-
not getting paid for
Yeah.
that third meeting.
Why do you think I'm trying to?
It's been before.
I didn't even know I was getting paid.
Okay.
I did, mine all went to the
Figure that
domestic
one
violence
out.
shelter. I've never seen a dime. So.
So if everyone can just email me, workshop ideas or topics that they would like to see, and I can also, kind of email out to, and I think I'd put in there, like when we have the TIP or the CIP, and so kind of when those may be sprinkled into, or other.
Because those have hard deadlines, right?
They do, and so it's like, we have public hearings at the council meeting, but that's not a good way to engage sometimes, so. Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
All right,
So,
next one is H, yeah?
Leona, I'll just skip this and I'm gonna make a motion. 'Cause I've
Yeah.
already read it.
Thanks.
To approve the Skamania County Emergency Services Mutual Aid Agreement as presented.
Second.
First and a second, any
If
discussion?
there's any discussion on that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Would you like to jump ahead to a motion on the next one?
I can do that too.
It's a long
Um,
motion to.
Want me to read it
It's a
for
long
you,
motion.
Dave?
Pace yourself.
Dave, I got this one.
Okay, okay.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 5-county cooperative mutual aid agreement between the fire protection agencies of Wasco County, Hood River County, Sherman County, Clickitat County, and Skamania County as presented, period.
Aye.
Good. One step at a time.
second,
Second, and a first and a second.
That's what I meant.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now you go.
There you go.
I meant to say second.
Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
I get credit for that second.
Yeah,
since
you
you
do.
teased me about it.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
All right, staff reports.
Yeah, you got about 30 seconds each.
Oh, no, this-
Over.
These are
It's 9
very
o'clock.
important updates. Actually, there is some great updates that we need to take a peek at.
I always have a lot. Who Ben first?
Ben,
Uh,
do we have an open position in the planning commission?
You
Did
do
we
have
fill
an
it?
open position in the planning commission. First review of statements of interest occurred at the planning commission meeting on Monday. We had one candidate submit a statement of interest. He wasn't available to do an interview that night with the planning commission, so their take was, we're in no hurry. We can interview him at the next meeting. They're not, we published 2 weeks in a row as we were required to do. We're not publishing it again to try to recruit somebody different, but we would absolutely accept more statements of interest and review them all at the same time. So that vacancy is still there. Planning commission meeting on Monday. They also reviewed and authorized public release drafts of 2 potential ordinance amendments. The first I talked about last time was the floodplain changes to the floodplain regulations. So those changes were drafted by FEMA, put forward to us. That public involvement effort will go to all the property owners that are within the floodplain, or that received a mailer in 2021 about their floodplain status. So some were within the floodplain and have been removed. They'll also get the update just to help close the gap there. This is a change to the suite of regulations we adopt for a critical areas ordinance. And so we have, I think it's a 60-day review period from the Department of Commerce, State Department of Commerce, on those changes that are being proposed. So we're not anticipating city council adoption until after that 60-day period is over. We're under a timeline to get it adopted by May 22nd. So the timeline will chug through, and we may need to have a special meeting to get that done, but I'm not positive on that. We'll work toward it and provide you updates as it goes. The second ordinance that they authorized for public release was 2 parts. First was a change to the setbacks applicable to corner lots in the multifamily residential district and 2-family residential district. The street side yard setback currently is 15 feet. And what they're putting out for public review is a reduction to 10 feet. with some caveats that if there's a driveway there, we're prioritizing pedestrians near that driveway. The second part is updating or incorporating any of the interpretations that have been made, and interpretations where there is a new use that just wasn't considered when the zoning code was adopted. You've authorized the planning commission and city staff in the commercial districts to conduct use interpretations. Once those are done, the next time we do a periodic review of our zoning code, we evaluate that to see if we want to enshrine that as part of the regulation. So that's there for the salon use, personal service salon use in the multifamily residential district, and that's the only one there. So overall, it's very small in scope compared to other zoning code issues that have come before you. We will initiate that public involvement over the course of the next month, hold public hearings on both of those issues at the planning commission meeting. They will then decide whether to alter anything, continue the public involvement effort, or recommend amendments to you all. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
So in the water world, we've got a pump test in the next couple weeks at the Hagel well. We've been adding services, fixing broken pipes. There was a DOH discussion at the conference I attended last week, specifically about lead and copper inventory. It's an EPA requirement that we do one, which will it's required by October. Just as everyone, just so you're aware, it'll likely lead to a requirement for us, the utility, to replace all lead lines within the system, including any private side of the service lines. So that's going to be an expensive effort.
When you say private side of the delivery.
Yep.
On the resident side of the meter. Okay.
Yep. That's,
Is that going to fall on the owner, or is that going to be part of the city cost?
that would be part of the utility cost. Yep.
Okay.
To do those replacements. But we're just trying to figure out where they are right now. But that would be, yep, an EPA thing that's coming down the pipe. So look for that.
Is that going to require us to hire because I know that there are companies that will actually come out and look for those lead pipes.
There will,
Are we
yeah,
gonna end up having to?
we might need to. Yeah, I've been able to secure technical assistance to do the initial inventory, so that's not coming out of our pockets. However, that inventory, to my knowledge at this point, is just using our paper records. So anything that has been, and it's okay to have unknowns, but unknown equals lead. So anything that's lead, we will have unknowns, which we will have to treat as if they are lead, which means that our testing requirements will all go up. Notifications will be required to all the community members, and additional investigation and replacements may or may not be required, but
How old are the water lines going to the schools?
but
That's my outside voice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Another, item was PFAS. So everyone's required to test for this by 2025. The higher risk communities are first, which are not us. Water sources by fire training areas or airports are those folks. So that's kind of the latest in water. Wastewater, as you guys know, we talked about it a little bit last time. We have a pump station project. So in your council packet, if anybody's interested, on page 475. Nope.
So I did First Street first.
Did First Street first. 480. 479. 479 is probably better. 479 has an aerial, and also shows approximately where the fairgrounds pump station is going to be. It's kind of fun to have plans to look at. So we pulled these for council review. And if there's any questions, I know everyone's kind of anxious to get out by this point in the evening, but Yep, this is a project that they're working on currently. We've got a contractor out doing excavation. Coordinating with the county, on moving sewer service lines and water lines so that they're able to have space to do these excavations for the larger well.
479.
479.
I said 5.
479. So there's that. So yeah, they were on site kind of late January. They were supposed to start with Cascade, but do that culvert. They're at Fairgrounds now. Completion for all 3 pump stations is to be the end of September. So we also have the wastewater treatment plant project that continues. They're pretty much out of the ground. They're just doing like final grading now, and then they'll be inside buildings and working on finishing up electrical.
Going back to the other one, that is that big fiberglass tank that's sitting there kind of north and west of the horse barn, correct?
Fiberglass.
Where the work center used to be.
So that pump station is between the Fair Board building and the Weed Board building.
Between the Fair Board building and what?
The Weed Board building.
Yes.
Across the street from the Gold
Right,
Center.
right.
Yep.
Across from the generator, basically, right
Yep.
there. Yeah.
So that unsightly, outdated piece of infrastructure will no longer be there.
Okay.
It'll be flush and it'll be of similar style to the Rock Creek pump station.
I noticed
So,
they've taken out the bollards and all that stuff, so.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Good.
so electrical upgrades and
Thank you.
skate upgrades. As part of that. Wastewater treatment, I&I and wastewater annual reports were due this month, so finish those. Lana chatted a little bit about the Cascade Avenue infrastructure improvements project. We requested a scope of work from one of our on-call engineers. And we did receive word today that we received a new auto sampler and flow meter, which were provided by the Water Environment Federation. So this is freed us. We just took advantage of an offer that was out there, which is great because the Influent auto sampler and flow meter will be replaced as part of the wastewater treatment plant improvement project, but the Effluent sampler and flow meters were not going to be replaced. So now they will be. We'll be able to get a set of reliable newer technology equipment to be able to use at not our cost. One of the pumps broke at the Cascade pump station, so it required a replacement. And it also required us to call out Bishop Plumbing 3 times, 4 times over the long weekend to pump that out. So that's what happens with aging infrastructure when you don't replace it. And it's extra painful because we're 6 months away from that entire pump station being replaced. But when you wait till the last minute to address your failing infrastructure, that's the kind of things that happens. You buy brand new pumps that you'll have for 6 months. Bar screen broke as well. So that required a part and an electrician to come out and troubleshoot and repair that. Again, the bar screen is being replaced as part of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. But when you wait until the last minute to address your failing infrastructure, you end up paying more for the repairs. So that's all in wastewater that I have. I don't have anything for stormwater. Streets, had a great conversation with the county road superintendent. It looks like they will be able to assist us in the street surface preservation efforts this year. So that is TIB funded. We have a small match with that. The Overlook project, I provided, there's some plans for
Great
those
plans. Those are my
also in
request.
your county packet or your packet. So that's the earlier one. That's the one that starts on page 475. And so that provides, if the first page provides like a site plan, it shows the sidewalk extension from where it currently terminates at Columbia Avenue. So if you're looking at it on the left-hand side, there's a road going north-south. This one doesn't have the aerial behind it, but the road going north-south is going to be Columbia. The road going east-west is going to be First Street. And so the new infrastructure would be like the light gray and the dark, like the darker gray, which is where the crossing is. And then the little like half circle on that page is gonna be the overlook. So if we. Pardon?
475. Page below.
Yep. So if you go down to 476, it's more like the zoom in of the overlook in essence. So it shows the new rail. It shows kind of what that wall would look like if you were standing on that BNSF and looking over to it. And then 477 shows the streetscaping improvements that are included as part of the project. So a couple benches, some different shrubs. It's got a bulb out, so to increase traffic calming, or it's, a traffic calming effort there. Speeding on First Street is definitely a concern. So 478 just shows details on the landscaping, the streetscaping that's proposed. So the RFQ for the consultant services should go out either tomorrow or but will be published in the paper next week. The construction contract, we anticipate advertising in April for a May award after the council meeting in May. Completion for that project is in October, currently identified for October. We expect the DNR grant notification on Tuesday. As we talked about, we put in for 5 different tree grants to be able to support the beautification of the city and benefits of having nice trees. Wayfinding signs are going to be delivered next week. If they weren't delivered today, and I didn't hear that they were, but those were funded by a grant as well.
Say the signs were.
Wayfinding signs.
Wayfind.
Yep. So like the kind of the decorative, the nice signs.
Okay, I get it. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, there were a number of those that needed to be updated, just based on changes to where
Middle
things
school
are.
wasn't at the high school anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the other things that'll be on those are more better signage on where you can find parking restrooms, which were concerns for people coming into the area. Equipment. So J Stout, or a representative from the J Stout auction came out to visit and review some of the equipment that we have slated for this year to surplus. So that would be the backhoe, a dump truck, one of our pickups, and our sweeper. He priced those at between $7,500 for all of them on the low end to $24,000 for all of them on the high end. So this is what happens when you drive your equipment into the ground and don't do regular updates of your equipment. So you don't get anything back when you surplus, and you spend a lot of labor hours and equipment's costs and repair.
Carolyn, real quick question on the new vac truck.
Yeah.
I noticed, is it the right front fender that's broken? Would you take a look at it?
Yeah.
See,
Is it just look unsightly or?
well, there's a big black piece on it. That's
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I can't remember if it's right front or left front, but
I'll ask him about it.
okay. And we may have bought it that way. I don't know.
We may have bought it that way. We tend to buy used, good condition used.
There you go.
Just write myself a note. So, yeah. One of the things that J Stout, and I haven't had a chance to chat with Liana on this, so you may not ever hear of it again, but they suggested the city putting together a contract which could be used by other municipalities in the gorge. So advantages would be to like lock in service rates and fees, and also to have something that we can offer to other public entities in the community. So they could use our contract to work with J Stout on surplusing item and purchasing equipment. So like the school or the PD, and it's rare that we can offer anything. So it is something I'm going to chat with her about, but it's.
I think we can do that with the King County deal too, can't we?
No, with their fleet stuff. Is that what you're asking? I barked up that tree for fleet, and no, we were not able to piggyback on that, unfortunately.
To get rid of things.
Oh, I don't know if they have any.
What do you mean you can't get on, you can't piggyback on the King County, the state contract? To get equipment?
For surplusing? Sorry, I
For
spoke too
surplusing
fast.
for buying.
Yeah, you want to buy or give away, get away?
Well, and actually, but the state deal for buying is
Anybody.
like we're part of that contract, but lately they don't have anything to buy.
Okay, all
We
right.
can't get it.
Well, okay.
So that's part of the chunk of that.
Okay.
So.
How you looking?
Just a note on, a staff note, I attended the Evergreen River Water and Wastewater Conference last week, had some great conversations with Ecology and Department of Health. Just as a no application approvals for our wastewater treatment plant is massively delayed. We have 3 staff that attended training for their wastewater treatment plant operator test exam prep in the last month since we last spoke. So our folks are getting trained. We went to, myself and 2 of the public works staff attended a regional user group meeting on CityWorks, which is our work order system, which is how we communicate work that needs to be done within the city, more so than calling. So we have a record of it being done. We learned a lot about features we weren't utilizing. We networked with other communities, and we were re-inspired as part of for the configuration implementation efforts, because it has been a long process and continues. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah.
Ben's got one more.
We got one more.
Guys are killing me.
Yeah. Planning Commission approved shoreline substantial development permit for the development on Rock Cove, FDM's development. The approval is for up to 19 overnight lodging cabins with a central event center that could be used for weddings or reunions, etc. That approval occurred at their January 22nd meeting. We're currently in the appeal period for that appeal period closes next week. We've received 1 appeal. We've been notified of 1 appeal. Appeals are heard by the Shoreline Hearings Board, state board. So we will need to figure out what the next steps there are and the commission's decision on that. The appeal centers on whether or not the public access that's provided is adequate or not.
Is that reference the bridge, quote unquote bridge that they were talking about? Or is that reference what Mary was talking about in regards to?
It'd be both those.
Both of those?
Both those things. The public access that they've proposed.
When you talk public access, you talk about the path around all the way around and where it ends up at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
The number of units there, is that what it was before, or is that an increase? I mean, does that number change on the number of units since this first, the new draft came out a couple of months back?
I don't.
From the initial it is.
Yeah, I meant that they had to reduce it down. I just thought that number was higher, which may be good for us in terms of income from sewers and stuff. So I just thought that was a different number than what I
The
was
shoreline
remembering.
permit that was approved in 2020 was for 4 buildings, each of which had 5 units in them. And
Okay, so
that
it's
was
20, so they lost 1.
20.
So this is a 19, okay,
That permit expired,
Okay.
COVID and
okay.
investor issues. So this new permit is a totally different
Okay,
proposal. So
Okay.
individual cabins instead of
right, okay.
townhouse.
Okay, yeah, and that's a proposal I read, the latest one, the last time I read it, so that the numbers haven't changed in terms of the units. Right. At all, okay, I just didn't remember 19, I thought it was last, so that's why I asked that
It was
question.
up to, they reduced 1 cabin as part of their mitigation sequencing,
right.
so they went through and decided not to pursue encroaching into a habitat buffer in 1 area.
Okay, that's the same as what I remember
The
reading.
approval itself is up to.
And just one other question on that, the bridge, I remember the bridge was there, and is the bridge part of that now or not part of that? Okay. And that was agreed on by the planning commission and the developer, right? So
Yeah.
everybody's in agreement?
Well, right, the permit that was issued accepted the developer's proposal for public access with 1 exception, providing some means to connect this project to the undeveloped easement that goes behind the assisted living facility. And that planning commission condition was that the developer would be responsible for their proportionate share of that.
Okay.
The proportionate share that we're looking at is around $40,000. And so they're prepared to write a check.
So that bridge or that idea is out of the proposal. I mean, that's the final, okay, so nothing's.
Because that was major money.
Yeah, yeah, so yeah, and that's what I thought when I read that
Yeah.
it wasn't in it. Just want to make sure that it had to change.
Leona?
The planning commission, thank you. The planning commission vacancy, that we have, was, Davy Ray, who had been on there for a number of years. We often will present a plaque, to outgoing planning commissioners, city council members. In this case, Davy's, in poor health. And so, thought that this would be a great opportunity to initiate one of the tree programs that Carolyn and Planning Public Works Assistant Tiffany are working on for legacy program for the trees. And so we are ordering plaque in Davy's name. So thank you for his appreciation.
Oh, cool.
Go,
Very good.
on a tree.
Very good.
Everyone should have received an email from Department of Retirement Systems regarding an audit that we had. It was a quick audit and that was what the forms were that you received as well. So we'll be updating some of the policies, such as including a form for council to fill out, even though because of the salary that you make, you don't necessarily qualify for the hours. And making some other corrections that were identified. No major impact to anything. Working on closing out the year end and getting the financial reports wrapped up. One of them is due next week, a couple weeks, for as related to our USDA loan from the sweeper. Or from the outfall, I don't know. But it's just a continuing requirement that we have to submit a report annually 60 days after the year end. So working on trying to get that all wrapped up. And so hopefully at the next packet, you'll get reports. I could have given you January's, but it wouldn't make sense because the beginning balances aren't in it yet. And then just a quick update on the Park Plaza. I didn't have time to get anything more together, but the design will be the smaller footprint east of the stairs. Will be, there were 2 workshops that the county held based on community feedback. And so the city was at them, the coordination of them what was different for each, but in both of them, it was hearing concerns that the community had that were being communicated to the county commissioners, as well as trying to work with them on what their requirements are then for the project. And that's why the design is staying east of the stairs. And it's the smaller footprint because ultimately the county approves the project and it is their land. And one of the concerns is that they would default on the contract. So that is a possibility. We will be going out with a second survey and an open house in late March or early April, and we'll have costs for that smaller footprint by then. And I think in the survey, it was split 50-50 between the larger project and the smaller project. But again, based on the feedback from the county, we're sticking with the smaller project. And then when we get that revised design and cost and we work on that second outreach, we will be updating the sign that's at the bottom because we know it's out of date, but we didn't want to update it with the 3 designs and then update it again. And so again, we're kind of working on seeing where that project goes. And so based on that second survey, I think that will then determine the direction of the project.
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
The stakes, I know from listening to the workshop after the fact that one of the commissioners, I think Commissioner Lana did ask to stake out. And I know that there's stakes there. The reports I'm hearing is nobody knows what the stakes mean. So, and I know you're going with the smaller project. is it possible to somehow make it clear? I mean, is the stakes 3 different projects out there?
Yeah, so we
So-
did that as soon as that request was made, and so I can see about updating those.
Yeah,
to
just
the- yeah.
in other words, to make it clear to where, and if you're only going for the smaller project, then we don't need the other stakes. But I just meant people are confused. And so I don't know, maybe have tape around, I don't know how to do
Maybe
it.
paint them different colors.
Yeah, well, if there's
Well,
only one
Well, I'll
project,
just, yeah.
you
I'll
just
take
remove
them
the
out,
other
yeah,
two.
Yeah, so
Two.
I'll have that, hopefully, by the end of February, so we'll see if I can get the, updated dimensions.
and then so then that would be reflected in where the stakes are put. And then the on the second survey, are you gonna, the last survey was done countywide. Are you gonna be doing this countywide as well? So it'll be to the same.
And it will be, so again, with the first survey, we had assumed too much. And so the second survey may be an 8.5 by 11, with more information about how the project came about to begin with. But also, the second survey will have different questions, because again, I think this project has been in multiple hands. And so when the city took it over, we assumed more things were done on the front end, that obviously weren't countywide. And so we'll, take a step back and, answer some of the questions that people were, requesting out of the first survey. So,
Clear up some confusion.
yeah.
Yeah, and also on the feedback I got, which I think you probably have already heard, a lot of the people are elderly and they had no idea what that QR code meant. And they felt they needed the QR code to get to the thing. I don't know if there's any way to combat that or not. But another thing, criticism I've heard is that the way you talked about a bigger shape, but people just, it looks exactly like some survey. It looked like junk mail to them. So they didn't even look at it. Cause you know how you get 4 or 5 junk mails? So literally, I think a lot of people got it that said they didn't get it. And they just thought, oh, that's junk mail. And they didn't even look at it, as we commonly do when we get so many advertisements. So I don't know if there's a way to have it just scream louder that it's important. So whatever, anyway.
Bright orange.
Wait, that color's taken, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
I think that color's taken, but not countywide.
Any specific information that you all need from that outreach?
I think I coordinated with the county, and I don't know who that would be, if it'd be, Richard Mayer or who it would be, but to contact them and maybe coordinate those questions a little bit so that we are covering those bases a little bit better. And it sounds like you're doing that.
Yeah,
So
We met with all the commissioners and listened to their input as far as, they were parroting back the concerns that were brought to them. So kind of compiling all that into a more focused approach and like, okay, if these are the things you're worried about, then this is what the next, we'll make sure that those questions are not only answered, but just served up. This is the whole reason why this project is.
in my conversation with Richard was, well, the county may want to put it out to a vote for the people. Do you really want it? Well, maybe that might be one of the questions that we put on the.
I don't think they're gonna get approval on the board for that.
Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, but you're saying that, I mean, that was
But
that
I
a
just
suggestion?
have that question asked in some way, shape or form of it, yes.
Yes.
That's
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
what I wanted to
There
know.
was a way to provide that feedback within the survey and people were able to do that, but yeah, we didn't ask it because again, like I said, we assumed that question was already asked.
Right.
Throughout the previous
Right.
processes.
Well,
yeah.
one benefit, I know that a lot of people that really want that project, I mean, if I really wanted the project, I wouldn't want to ask that question. I'm not saying that about other people. But if that question is asked in an open-ended proper way, there won't, then that avoids one getting criticism. And it avoids one of the arguments. It goes away if that question is asked fairly and put out there. But I realize that then one takes a chance, if they're really married to the project, that they might not get information they like. But still, you would get rid of that argument after the fact.
Anything else? I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
I would move to entertain the motion. I'm gonna entertain the motion. I'm gonna make the motion. It's 9:30. Leave me alone. I'll move to Yeah.
Approve the vouchers.
Approve the
as
vouchers
presented.
as presented.
Second. I noticed you needed an attorney help on that. I don't know.
Hey,
But
this is-
anyway,
this is
It's all
why
about
we
the
don't-
verbiage.
why we don't go beyond
Um,
9:30.
This is where you have an opportunity.
Did we second it and all that stuff?
Yes,
Yeah.
I-
Okay, any other
Did you vote?
discussion?
we didn't vote on the voucher. yet.
No, you has to have a discussion about the voucher.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wow. All right, does anybody have anything for the greater good?
I am enjoying my participation on the fair board.
Oh, good.
Good.
I really am. They're good group of people.
All right, and
I have something for the next meeting.
so do I, go ahead.
So I want to see options for adding to our funds for affordable housing. Mitigating the impact of short-term rentals on housing availability. And maybe even disincentivizing long-term vacancy. Just as far as what are the legal options that we could use.
Okay,
Might
so,
not make it next month.
so
but-
adding to the Affordable Housing Fund. And that's all I was able to write.
Mitigating the impact of short-term rentals on housing availability.
De-incentivize long-term vacancies. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Is
Okay.
that second homes? Is that what you mean?
No, short-term rental, everything.
no,
The long term.
The third term. Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
vacant
there's,
size.
I've seen some
Oh.
houses be empty like there was one. Yeah, there was one near where I was living that was empty since I moved there last April.
Yeah, I know about that.
Well, and I think part of charging them utilities is part of that, because then they're paying
Yeah.
utilities regardless of what they're on.
Doesn't help with the people that need a house, but then again.
Well, maybe it's like, hey, since I'm paying the bills, I might as well rent it out.
Yeah.
That's.
Because it becomes a derelict property.
Sell it,
after a
yeah,
while.
yeah, yeah.
Or sell it against something, money going out of pocket instead of just
Hmm.
sitting there.
All right, and then the other thing that I would like to add,
Okay.
that might be, because that deserves a lot, deep dive. So,
I can get you a timeline as to when we
Okay.
can.
I would like Ben to provide a broadband update. Because Ben has been involved with a couple of different projects. I don't think that he's had an opportunity to, lately anyway, to update the rest of you on how we stand and what's the developments that are happening there.
Pat, you got
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be on the next, but it might avoid somebody getting killed at one of the intersections if we address it. But yeah, there have been a lot of complaints about, people having trouble with the crosswalks on First and Second, and then complaints of speeding. And I think at some point, and I don't know if we want it on the council should discuss it. If it doesn't happen next meeting, that's fine. So I'm flexible on that. But Carolyn, I've even was thinking of maybe one option is to, with some of the residents, meet with you and if you're willing and see if there's, in other words, maybe some of it can be where somebody with Carolyn's expertise will have some ideas and it doesn't need to be discussed at a council. In other words, if you met with some of the people at these crosswalks and they shared what their experiences were, you might have some low-cost solutions that then could be, if you agreed with them, could be presented to council. So maybe that step in the interim. So, and so what it is I thought if you'd be willing to do that at some point, and then we could do a council, it could be on a council agenda at some point after that. And I don't know if you like that idea for you.
Always
I know you're
willing to
busy.
people. Yeah, always willing. to
Okay.
Where's
And-
Crown Vic?
I just shut this down, so I'm adding notes to my notes here. Yay, technology. I did want to share too, that I know that some of the flags have gone like bad and, we have new ones ordered.
Yeah.
And they have reflective on one side. We weren't able to get them donated, but we were able to split the cost with the, Stevenson Downtown Association. So those are coming. I know. Huh?
Whose logo?
Nobody
I was
else.
on SDA.
SD on one side, Stevenson on the other.
Yeah, when I've done a lot of research on those flags as far as studies that have been done throughout the world, and the flags are a double-edged sword. So they're good and they're bad studies, and studies have shown really they don't work. But just something to consider. But those could be discussions with these residents, because some people will argue when I have to use a flag, then I'm not getting the same. I'm having motorists say, well, where's their flag? In other words, they should get protection, whether there's flags there or not when they cross that street. So it should work. You could get rid of the flags. You should have increased safety. The flags aren't really shown to work, but those are discussions we can have later. But what I've learned on the flags is it's a feel-good thing, and they think, well, that'll fix it. well, they don't fix the problems. Anyway, but those are discussions for later.
One quick comment. Would the council consider, changing procedure to where we could open up a, public comment right at the end of the meeting, limited to 2 minutes, per person? So that if they have questions about something that has come up during our meeting, that they could make public comment on that, not for discussion, but only for their comment. Just a thought.
Dave, you're making people stay here till 10 o'clock.
No, we already tried to get away from the 10 o'clock and we're here at 9:35,
Mike and Mary,
so we're going to 2
Mr.
meetings a
Jensen,
month.
some of folks did here.
Don't have to do it tonight, but. just
Oh, we're
a
not
thought.
doing it
Are
tonight.
you putting it on the agenda to discuss? Because
I'm
maybe
just,
that-
I'm just making a comment.
yeah.
Anything else for tonight's agenda? Meeting delayed, adjourned, 9:37.
Thank you, Dave.
What's that?
Well, actually.
Did you join Boiling